we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. It is Friday night here on the YouTube channel, and thank you all for joining us as we're going to get into reincarnation, near-death experiences, and some serious life woo with Nikki Williams. She will be here momentarily. Yeah, we're going to have fun tonight. We got to say hello to each and every one of you as well. Race fan in the gold medal position, Catherine Evans with a silver. Robert Lamons taking home the bronze medal tonight. Hi, Jimmy Gonzalez and Lightwalkers. Nicola Perry Jr., welcome to SOR Chat. Road Flair and Jennifer Patterson, good to see you. Melissa Nicole and Joanne, how are you? Quantum Momentum is here. Quantum Momentum will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Amy WC, looking lovely tonight. Severin Shot, how you doing? T-Bone, my man. Good to see you. Hi, Forrest Louie. Thank you for coming on in. Lee the Bee. How you doing, man? Human Carl. What's happening, Human Carl? Looking forward to tonight's show as well, my bud. All right. Mama Catherine. Mwah. I love you, my dear. I hope you're ready to ride the woo train tonight. Okay, here we go. Roll call continues with Richard Hauser. Richard Hauser will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Let's continue on, shall we? Flat 6. Good to see you, SG Nav Spotter. Thanks for coming on in. And Bolenia, my man. Nice to have you here. Hello, Nikki in Seattle. Nice to see you. Kurt M., thank you for coming on in. Amy, welcome to SOR Chat again. And W. David Page. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. And there's Pam Harris, Time Travel. How you guys doing? Continuing on with our roll call, Super Knower. How you doing, buddy? Desiree White. How are you, Desiree? And Thomas Rock. Thank you for joining us. Okay, holy shit. John Swan is back. I haven't seen this name in a couple years. Good to have you back, John. Sandy B., what's happening? And Stargazer, thank you for joining us. Matthew Goodka, good to have you back as we continue on with our roll call. Paramarv, Laura Lobbs, Tim Mothman and his goatee. Thank you for joining us, everyone. And we continue on with Jeff Steve Garvey. He'll hit a home run for you. And Marty Burback, Toe Tag, Chillgasm. Good to see you all. And who's on Facebook? Who's hiding here? It's Sparkles. Look at that. Sparkles. Yay! If I had some sparkles to throw in the air, I would totally throw them. Michael Fontaine, good to see you. As we want to say, the Super Chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. And don't forget to shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. And, so make sure you go shopping at spacedoutradio.com. And let's get the radio side going, shall we? Hello and welcome to the radio side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We're going down the road of reincarnation and near-death experiences with our guest tonight, Nikki Williams, as we await the arrival of Bill WD-40. He's going to lube us up for tonight's show because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth, people. You don't want that rigidness. You know, you don't want anything to all of a sudden catch you off guard. That's what WD-40 does with Bill as he's lubing up as we speak. Mama Catherine, thank you for kicking off the super chat tonight. Very much appreciate your love and support of what we do here, my dear. I cannot wait to see you in Reno, you and Charlie. It's going to be like a family reunion. We got to go for dinner. We have to go for dinner. Yes, we do. Is Dave's hat in the store? I wish. I found this at a gas station, my ball cap. I found this at a gas station just outside of Rachel, Nevada. And it was the only one left. If there was two, I would have bought them. Yeah. All right. I think we're pretty much ready to go. More people are going to roll on in. You're here. I'm here. Nikki's here. So it's that time of the night. Throw those horns up. Let's rock. From the snowy mountains of central British Columbia to you listening to around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter on Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. Tonight, we're going to go on a ride that we don't normally go on in this show, the riding of reincarnation, near-death experiences. We're going to have fun with Nikki Williams tonight. She'll be up momentarily. Then in hour number 3, we got another story from Steve Stockton from Among the Missing. Then Courtney Marcassani is going to bring us some real interesting UFO news on the UFO report at the end of hour 3. All right. I'm ready for it. I hope you are too. Nikki Williams is a spiritualist and a student of reincarnation and the spiritual lives we have led. Nikki has a unique approach to astrology and reincarnation, which we are going to learn about tonight. She helps people break through the barriers of their past, and that way they can live in the now. Ooh, this sounds fun and interesting. Let us say hello to Nikki Williams for the first time on Spaced Out Radio. How are you, my friend? We'll get you to unmute your microphone. There you go.
There we go.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
All right. So this is something that, you deal with one of these issues. And it's funny that you're on tonight because the other night I did my Dave 101, which is kind of my rant. And I went into this rant about the paranormal, okay, and how these paranormal enthusiasts, although it's okay to be an enthusiast, I have no problem with that. I'm an enthusiast, but we're not solving anything. We're playing with ghosts, okay? And when you deal with the paranormal, I think we should be trying to figure out something because there are two questions that everybody has in their lifetime. Maybe 3, because if you go back long enough, you're going to want to know who shot JR. Okay, you're probably too young to remember that. But are we alone in the universe? And is there life after death?
Mm-hmm.
That's 2 major questions that are stuck on a lot of people's minds on this planet. And yet we have tens of thousands of people in the United States and Canada alone who are investigating paranormal experiences. And not one of them is worried about whether or not there is truly life after death. Okay? So getting to you tonight, it's a nice synchronicity that we're going to get into near-death experiences and into reincarnation and what you believe in this. So how did you get started in all of this?
I mean, I came in remembering past lives that I've had. Just I don't even have a moment where it's like it came in. It's just kind of something that as a very young child, I remembered a very different planet than this one. I remembered a very different life where I was doing working in Egypt in the pyramids and things. Um, and just, it was just very natural to me. I had a lot of very different experiences. One of my very first memories as a child was being outside playing, and I had just these 3 beings of pure light, so bright that I could not see a face, I couldn't see what they really looked like, it was just this brilliant, brilliant light, and I was only about 3 years old, 4 years old at the time, so, it was just this very awe-inspiring moment, and I vividly remember this feeling of this just love and peace and just otherworldly comfort that came through, and that really all just kinda sent me on a very interesting path throughout my life of seeking understanding of these things. That feeling of love and peace just was something that became kind of like a North Star compass for me to not only understand it, but it became something that, when I came close to something that was really true or really meant for me, that feeling really came over me. And just investigating my own past life experiences, remembering a different planet was something that was very interesting. Remembering very different kind of bioluminescent vegetation from another planet. And again, that was just something that came forward. And then remembering when I was somebody who worked in the pyramids as kind of somebody who took people through a journey, kind of like a shamanic experience where people, would lay down and I would help them kind of leave their bodies and kind of go on their own cosmic adventure. And this was all very natural to me. And then I remember when I was in middle school, we were learning about, some very modern mainstream social studies about Egypt. And I remember just being like, this is not a historical fact as I remembered it. So it was just these things came through, and eventually as I got older, I came into astrology, and these things just blended for me that, there it's one in one because I have found that our past life experiences do come forward in our astrology charts, which brings also a medicine to help us get through things that have come from the past that we don't even remember.
Wow. I mean, that's a very quick education at such a young age to be going through this. Was this something that just happened to you? Or was this something that was carried on from your family generation to generation?
Yeah, I mean, my mother's side of the family was a bit kind of into the woo-woo stuff, but not it wasn't something that was very openly talked about, but it wasn't something that was, frowned upon either. But my personal experiences, I was just a very quiet kid and I didn't know that these things were, not things that happen every day to people. So it was just normal to me, but I kept it to myself. But as I got older, my siblings have all had very different experiences too. We've had experiences together. My brother and my sister and I had a UFO sighting when we were younger all together. That was a very life-changing experience for all of us. So it's there, but it wasn't talked about much until we were all much older.
Wow. Okay, so the idea that you were going through this since childhood, I mean, did you not think that was a little, lack of a better term, weird that here you were as a child, you should be playing, video games, riding your bike, playing with dolls, or doing whatever you did as a kid, and here you were studying up on past lives in Egypt. And I say that because a good friend of mine back in the day, her daughter, who's the same age as mine, they went to kindergarten together, since she was 2, had been telling her mom that she had died on the Titanic, and would
Wow.
explain things that
Mhm.
happened on the Titanic, to the point where, at 2 years old, my friend's mother had, or my friend's daughter had never seen anything, never read a book on the Titanic. They didn't have cable, so there was no television to watch to see Titanic shows, and all of this stuff. And here the child was explaining everything to do with
Mhm.
the Titanic, and to the point where how she died holding on to on mom's arms and all this kind of stuff, and how cold the water was. Like it was like real sick. Like at 5 years old, she was having Titanic birthday parties.
Wow,
You know,
yeah.
I mean, it's just weird how reincarnation can hit kids. And that was my first experience in really wondering whether or not there was some truth to this reincarnation stuff.
Mhm.
So as you grew up and started studying your own past lives, what did you learn about yourself? Do you consider yourself an old soul? Do you consider yourself someone who is special because you do have this recall?
I, through my own studies, have coming I'm using a term that I didn't develop myself, but, there's one way to look at it as an interplanetary soul. So, from what I've learned about myself is that I have lived many lives off of planet Earth, and there's been a very big wave of souls that have come to Earth at this time because there's shifts going on, and there's just souls that have come that are more, I wouldn't say more advanced in, a better or less than term, just, the universe is such an old thing that compared to the earth, that souls that have come here that have lived off planet, have experienced things off planet, have come to kind of try to help us going through that shift. And I was kind of just that weird kid that was always like, I didn't really want to play with the other kids. I'd rather be in my room doing my own thing. And I took very many different routes in it too, to where I went through a period, these things happened to me probably from the ages of 3 to about 2nd grade, however old you are in there. I was kinda just these things were happening to me, and I just didn't know it was abnormal because I wasn't talking about it. And then when I got to about the 3rd grade, there was a really big shift that happened, that I started to really study astronomy and physics and things. I was just fascinated with the stars in the sky and looking up, just being like, that feeling that would come from those 3 beings I experienced when I was younger, of just this divine love and connection. I would just gaze at the stars and be like, "It's there, it's out there somewhere." And I got really invested in the hard sciences, the astronomy, physics, and trying to understand how the universe worked in that aspect. And then, even that shifted then. I really didn't even start learning about the spiritual stuff until I was about 18 and older, is when the real spiritual learning, where I started navigating through, different religion, different philosophies, different, healing modalities and things. All this stuff came through because I was just seeking this understanding. And looking back on it now, I started to realize that there was kind of a path that was carved out for me in that, to where it was very, very good reasons for me to have gone through, this very scientific phase, where at that time, I was a middle schooler claiming that I was an atheist because that was just where I was at that time. But it's given me this very roundabout education of, how does science look at the universe? How do spirituality people look at the universe? All these different things have come into one whole, which is where I'm at now.
Do you feel that you are alone on this journey? Or that this journey is yours alone to find out what's going on?
Not necessarily. I think that we all have our own piece in it, but I think, there's a level of self-discovery that a lot of souls have come forward with. I wouldn't say special in any sense of like, I don't see anybody as better or worse in this than other people. We all have our own lessons carved out for us. And I think that there's a very personal element to it, that we kind of have to go through our own dark night of the soul kind of experiences, or shadow work, or whatever you want to call it, to really bring it out of ourselves. And then there's kind of a phase, which is, a second wind of it, that it's like, okay, well, now that I've gone through this, I'm bringing this out into the world to help. So when I've come into that, then you start making with connections with other people, and you start to realize that you really just one piece of this big whole that's happening. But there was a very lonely period before the hand, where it was just like, I have to figure out my place in the world before I can really interact with it the way I came to do.
Okay, so why was it lonely? Why, tell me about that loneliness part.
Just, I mean, just being different, and feeling like I couldn't. I don't remember exactly when I kind of became aware that I was different, and that I had different experiences that people, just didn't know what to do with. But I remember being very young, and when I did kind of open up about who I really was and what I was experiencing, it was just there was this look from adults that was just like, I don't really know how to interact with this child. As a child, I was told, oh, you're an old soul. You're too old for your little body. You know too much. You're too smart for your own good. Those kinds of things were reflected back to me, and it was just very confusing. And I think I kind of learned to self isolate, and in that sense, it was part of my personal lesson, looking at my own chart and my own past life memories and things, which a lot more of my past life memories came forward actually in recent years that really kind of put it all together. But, I realized part of my personal lesson is to not depend on other people. I've lived very many lives in service to others and in, really giving of myself and self-sacrificing. So part of my personal lesson has been to kind of stand on my own and speak to what's true for me without being so concerned about it. So a big part of that lesson for me was just to, kind of go through these rocky, lonely, dark moments and then come out on the other side later on in my life.
I think that's a great answer. Nikki Williams is our guest tonight, talking reincarnation and near death experiences. The spiritual travels that you have taken around the universe and around these past lives, what have you learned not only about yourself, but life in general?
Yeah, I mean, life in general, that was kind of where it was at. That was my main goal, and everything I've learned about myself has been secondary to that. It's been more, how do I fit into that hole? But I've really come to the point now where I truly believe, and I see it on very many different angles, that, like I said, something is shifting in the world that we live in, and you can see that from, I think, it doesn't matter what philosophy of life or religion or whatever people seem to come from. Um, there's something happening right now. Things are happening, whether you look at, disclosure things coming out, there's a big shift with that happening, and people are going through some really big healing experiences. And what I learned is that, we're all moving in this direction of some big shift. And I'm not going to claim that I know what that final shift is going to look like, or who has the right answers or anything like that. But there's just this collective movement. And really, the soul's journey, we come in, whether you come from off planet to help, or whether you're very much more associated with the earth and the evolution of the earth, we all kind of come in to to do this healing work and to really find and understand, the source, the creator, God. I personally use the word God. That's just my own terminology. Fill in whatever you want there. But, you know, the way that I look at astrology and reincarnation is that, we came to understand, we are God creating, or, you know, that source understanding itself through itself is really kind of the sole purpose, and we're just fractal expressions of that source, that we've come to see things from every different angle and every different kind of reality. So through multiple lives we see from different perspectives, and the goal is to kind of put it all together in this evolutionary process of just moving closer and closer to that that God creator. It's the feeling that is what I've been chasing after my whole life, that feeling of that divine love and that divine peace and comfort and connection, and just living in a quote unquote better world for all of us. There's everywhere you look, there's people who are really kind of struggling and having hard times right now. And it's this healing process to move forward with that.
Absolutely. And the idea that you have been able to engage in this topic of past lives and really be able to look to the past to what you need to do for the future, how has that made this lifetime?
When I finally realized that, it was really like opening up to a flow that I was sorely lacking at before I put it all together. It was just, hard times, and I kept feeling like I was bumping into walls and things. And this has been my experience with working with people too, that there's kind of a light that comes on when you can look at your own, what I work with astrology is not so much, I mean, there's memories, you can have a regression, or some people just spontaneously remember things, and there's great value to that in knowing the details. But what I work with in astrology is more that there is an emotional, I call them more like a trapped emotional pattern that gets stuck. So if you had a very traumatic life in the past, that kind of thing could get stuck, and you can find yourself repeating patterns in this life. And I personally experienced that very much so, that I had this pattern of loss of my own identity and things that was coming from a past life experience that I just didn't understand. And when I finally had the memory and looked at my own chart and saw the lessons and the medicine for that came forward, it was like lights came on. And it's, I'm still healing in that process and I'm still moving forward in that. But it's just like all of a sudden you just get this conscious awareness of like, oh, I understand what I'm here to do. I understand what I have to heal so that I can manifest and live the life that I really feel in my soul is what I came to do.
And what do you think your mission is?
This helping people, it's I just have a very small piece in it, but anytime I can help people do that little bit of healing, finding themselves, we're all so important in this as I see it. Everybody has their own piece. So finding each individual person and sitting down and saying, "Hey, this is the story that comes forward from the past of what's been stuck." And I find that when even if I have a complete stranger in front of me, when I tell them kind of a story about the past lives that come forward, they usually sit back and go, wow, that's really to a different degree what I've been experiencing in this life. Because emotions are energy and that stuff kind of gets stuck and we just keep recreating those things until we understand them and can get past them. So for me, it's just anybody that I can help turn those lights on for themselves. That's another soul that's going to go out there and change the world and fulfill their soul mission, and so on and so on. Light one candle and the rest of starts to light up around it.
I think that's a beautiful answer. Really is. Because I think so much for most of us, including myself, we tend to overthink life. We tend to overthink, the spirituality of everything and what the purpose of being here truly is. And I think you're really trying to put it into a more simplistic concept, which is probably what we all need to be doing.
Yeah, we definitely do overcomplicate it, and it's the missions our souls come in with. It's almost always not something that's very consciously easy to do. It's part of the soul's lesson is to push out of the comfort zone and move towards something that's a little bit different than what we're used to. And that's where the growth and the evolution really come from. We don't grow and we don't evolve when things are the same or when things are easy. I mean, even if you look at, for a long time that it was believed that our brains don't create new neurons and things at a certain point. But now they realized that those studies were done in rats that had the same pattern. But when they started introducing new stimulus to them, our brains do change. So, anything, when we're stuck in the same pattern, we don't grow, we don't heal, and we just repeat the same things. To grow and change, there has to be new experiences that come forward. And that's really what the healing that I'm doing with astrology is all about.
Love it. Love it. Okay, we got about 90 seconds to go here. Nikki Williams is our guest tonight. When it comes to past lives and learning about them, do we all have this ability to find out our past lives?
Yes, absolutely. There's many different ways you can have a regression. There are people who do this where they guide you through like a hypnosis, and there's many, many, many good people out there that are trained in both regular psychotherapy that also do this. Then, like I said, things come through spontaneously. People have dreams. When I'm working with a client, I usually say, as I'm telling you the story, think of dreams that you've had. Think of things that have come through that you kind of dismiss because you didn't think anything of it. But especially now, there's energies coming forward that are really bringing this to the forefront for everybody. So most likely, people have had a dream or some random memory that they didn't know was a past life. But if you really dig in, you can find it.
I love it. I love it. And I expect we're going to learn more of that tonight because maybe you'll teach us a little bit on how to get there.
Absolutely.
I think a few of us can recall our past lives. Many of us cannot. It'd be neat to kind of figure out who we are because you know what? Not everybody is Cleopatra and not everybody is Zeus or Caesar or someone along those lines. No. That's not how this reincarnation thing works. We're going to learn more about that and near-death experiences tonight with our special guest, Nikki Williams, on the topic du jour. Man, if we need to know this, what else could possibly be out there? Reincarnation, do you buy it? Do you believe it? Have you had your own experience in other lives? We will find out more when we return on Spaced Out Radio right after this. Stay tuned. Good start, kiddo. Good start.
Thanks.
Having fun?
Oh, yeah.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah, you've got really good questions. I appreciate that.
Well, I try. You know, I'm surprised you can understand me being from New Jersey. I'm teasing.
10 years in Colorado, I lost most of my accent, so surprised you can understand me.
Where in Colorado did you live?
I lived up in the mountains just west of Colorado Springs.
Okay.
A tiny little mountain town called Woodland Park.
Well, then why does that sound familiar?
You had somebody on the show. I watched a past episode, and I don't remember who it was exactly, but I remember hearing her say something about and she lived in Woodland Park, and I was like, wait a minute.
Oh, that's Katie Page.
Yeah.
Yes. That's where I'd heard it before.
Yeah, I was very surprised to hear that. I was like, hey, I know that. It's a tiny little mountain town, so small world.
Yep. I live in a tiny British Columbia town.
That's awesome.
Yes. It literally snowed here for like 36 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, I've been in some snow in Colorado, but that's a lot.
And what brought you back to New Jersey?
I grew up here and had a period of time where I have a son he's 5 now, but when he was about 1, we had to come back for some family reasons and stuff to kind of get our feet grounded again, and still here.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Marty Burback outside the studio right now. It is minus 13 degrees Celsius, which puts us at about, let me just find it here. Puts us at 8.6 degrees Fahrenheit. That's where we are.
Wow.
Yeah. Not as cold as last week, where it was very cold. Political foolishness, I agree. And let's see, tomorrow we're supposed to get freezing rain on Sunday, back to snow on Monday and Tuesday, sunny on Wednesday, snow on Thursday, and then sunny again after that. Fun times. Mama Susan, how are you? Oh, you're minus 27 tonight. Oh, you poor thing. Oh, that's with wind chill. Okay. Yeah. I knew you were in Mundare. Homus Stanici's Kubasa. The greatest Kubasa in the world. Want to say a big thank you tonight to Mama Catherine, Louie, and T-Bone for the super chats. Very much appreciate the love and support. And remember, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. Yep. We don't have the swag that you buy and then just wear it once, and then you use it, put it in your to-do list drawers when you're doing house chores. No, that ain't our stuff. You can actually wear our stuff in public. You know, that's what we like about it. You can wear it in public. All right. Also, make sure you schedule on down May 10th through 12th, 2024. Yes, just 4 months away from the 3rd annual SOR fan party in Reno, Nevada at the Silver Legacy Casino and Resort. VIP tickets are $100. $100. Meet us there. We're going to have a lot of fun. I'm bringing in a bunch of special guests to hang out with you. So we'd love to have you there. And come join us for a weekend of adventure. A free radio show, VIP party, ghost tour of Virginia City, Skywatch. We'll probably even have a meditation circle for those who've had experiences. Yeah, that was requested by Mama Catherine. So when she talks, we walk. And so we're probably going to do that as well. It's a great weekend adventure, May 10th through 12th. Come join us. Everyone is invited. Everyone is invited. So even if Nikki wants to show up, she can show up. That's just the way it is. So here comes the next half hour. Get your tickets at info@spacedoutradio.com. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. Glad we could chat away tonight about the strange topics we do. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. We're talking reincarnation, astrology, and everything woo-tastic tonight. Our guest from the beautiful state of New Jersey, we have Nikki Williams. Nikki, welcome back.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Doing great.
Good. All right. Right before the break, you were kind of breaking down what it's like to have reincarnation happen. Why do you believe this is such a thing when it pretty much goes against everything that we've been brought up with?
There's some astrological influences going on right now too that are really kind of bringing forward the woo-woo stuff and bringing things. I like to go back to, like, when you look at the book of Revelations and things, what that word apocalypse means is a lifting of the veil, and that's the true Greek definition of the word. And to me, it's like that's really what's happening right now, and people are starting to remember things and look into things and be curious about things and have more spiritual and odd experiences that call them into, I want to understand more about what it is that, why we're here and what's really going on. There's a big shift right now. It's actually, it's such an alignment with the day we all met up here to talk about this. The planet Pluto is the farthest planet out there, a very, very slow moving influence. And in astrology, we still count it as a planet. And it's literally today making a shift from the sign of Capricorn, where it's been since 2008, which has a lot to do with structures and governments and order and, the old ways of things that have been. And it's moving into this new sign of Aquarius, and it's going to be here for the next 40 years. We're going to be in this very, very different energy. And Pluto is kind of what we look to for the generations in astrology. So, when you talk about the certain generations, how we talk about the baby boomer generation is a Pluto and Leo generation, and then beyond that. So this, it's something that moves very slowly, but it's changing now and going from where it's let me backtrack a little bit there. Pluto is a planet that it's really about death and rebirth. So it's like the thing to look to, the energy that we look for when the reincarnation cycles, because it's everything that dies and then comes back into a different form. And that's really been bringing forward this kind of dismantling of all the things that we've known, all the things we've been taught before, all the things we've been given by, schools and old religious beliefs and things like that are coming to really be called up to and questioned. And as this planet moves into this next sign of Aquarius, it's about different science, technologies, futuristic stuff, more humanitarian ideals. And it's the sign of the woo-woo stuff of aliens and astrology and past lives and all that stuff that's kind of weird and out there is the sign of Aquarius. So I really think there's a shift happening right now with that. And, the stars are backing that up. And, people are just remembering things more than they used to and having more spiritual experiences on a more regular basis than they used to be as this kind of collective waking up happens.
How many people are waking up to this, though? Because society is pretty blank.
I definitely think it seems that way when, when you look to the social media and regular media and things like that, it really seems that way, but my experience is when you really have a one-on-one conversation with somebody, when you really get to that soul level connection, people are waking up more than we even realize. People are starting to at least question things. And, as we shift, there is a book I read a long time ago called The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell, and he's talking about how when shifts in society have happened, we tend to think it's because either, 100% of society has come on board with whatever shift that is happening. And, if even if it's not 100%, we might think, well, maybe it's 50%, half of a society has to agree to something for that shift to happen. But studies have actually shown that it's more like 25 to 30%. So really, when you look around, I think you could almost grasp that maybe 25 to 30% of the population is starting to at least question things. And that's really where a shift starts to happen, is when that many people can kind of grasp a concept, then it really starts to evolve. And even if it's just questioning, I had that dream and it was very real, and it was a very, from all my experiences, and there's been a lot of studies that have shown this too, that when you have a past life memory come forward, or a past life dream or something like that, things are very historically accurate. You don't have people saying, "Oh, I lived in World War II and I was listening to my iPod while I was, walking down the street." There's historical accuracy to it. So when people start to have that experience and say that really felt like something that I don't, wasn't just a regular dream that I had, putting that on paper, taking a look at that is such a big thing. And I think there's more and more people doing that kind of thing, taking a look at those things that we would normally cast aside as just an odd experience we had.
I love it. I love it, because there is stuff that's way more than just odd experiences, but I think people today, like I was talking to a friend of mine about an experience we had together, and he hasn't been the same in months.
Mhm.
And he called it, and it's funny, he called it an odd experience. I said, why can't you just admit that you saw what you saw, and that it scared you? It's okay to admit that. But for some reason, we don't want to, admit that we've seen something or experienced something out of the ordinary.
Yeah. It challenges the very core of what we think is real. And we're so accustomed to change is scary because it's the unknown. When something happens that doesn't fit into your normal structure of what you believe, it's like, how I can't fit that. I now don't have the answers that I thought I once did when something challenges our version of reality, and it's hard for people to deal with that. And it was an interesting observation that I even made, as I was saying earlier, when I was in my early 20s, me and my sister and my brother all had a UFO experience together, that we were outside in our yard, dark, middle of the night talking. And, there was just this light that I think we all just assumed was a star or something. And all of a sudden it got very, very bright, like brighter than the sun, and kind of zoomed over us. And my sister did not even see it. She just heard it, but it was not even an audible sound. It was a very strange thing. And all three of us ducked at the same time because it seemed to have zoomed so close over our heads that we all kind of were in shock and ducked down. And, my sister was terrified of that. And she, was like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to think about it. I don't know what that was. I don't know. And, my brother was very like engaged and was just like, yeah, something's happening. And we kind of went a little bit crazy. And my own personal experience was just kind of like, it obviously was not my first experience. So I almost got to the point of being like, okay, this is just normal. And then, later on, me and my brother had both had interesting kind of follow-ups with that, where my brother saw the same thing again. And had gone downstairs into our basement to do my laundry, and I had felt like something. I kind of just paused, like I was just stopped for some reason, and I felt like something kind of grasped my head, almost like I kind of envisioned like a claw machine kind of thing grabbing me very delicately and picking me up to where I almost felt kind of not off the ground, but just the weight of my own body being picked up. And then I have a span of time that I lost. I don't know. I don't remember really anything what happened until the next day. And it's just, to this day, it was just such an interesting observation that to this day my sister doesn't like to talk about it because it's something that's scary for her. And my brother, had this very different, like, eagerness of something to come. And to me, it was very normal. And it was kind of just, even all three of us being siblings had such different reactions to that same experience. And again, it's that challenging of what we know and how prepared we are to challenge everything we know.
It is a challenge, and very few people are actually wanting to take on that challenge to find out, their past lives. You mentioned that you had past lives previous that you recall from Egypt and other places, and even planets way off in the stars. I mean, how do you
Mhm.
know that that just isn't lucid dreaming or imagination, that you were there?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, I am my own biggest skeptic. I don't like to assume when I have an experience that it is legitimate. I'm very cautious of that. Um, there was a lot of corroborating evidence to me that came forward, and a lot of validation from other research and hearing other experiences that were similar to that. I mean, when the memory I had of another world was something that, I mean, like I said, I don't even remember a time that memory actually just came forward. It's something that I just, as long as I could remember anything, it was there. And, it was just a very vivid image of, I was sitting in almost like a hot tub, hot springs kind of thing, and looking out at this vast landscape. And it was darker than you would think, but it was kind of almost like this UV light, like a very different kind of sun. I would think now. I didn't have that conscious thought at the time, but it was just this very different looking world, and seeing this vast landscape of this kind of bioluminescence vegetation and things. And it was something that I mean, I had nothing came forward that is like, oh well, I could have gotten this from a show or something like that. It wasn't until later in life. I think I even remember watching, the movie Avatar, and seeing it wasn't exactly the same, but seeing that and just being like, that's so strikingly similar. And then yeah, when it was just a lot of research too, remembering my past life that I had in Egypt. Like I said, in middle school, we were learning about, well, here's the pyramids, and here are these what we called sarcophaguses in the pyramids, and this is what they were. They were burials for kings and things like that. And I just instinctively didn't think that was true, because what I remembered was being kind of, yeah, like a shamanic person that would bring you in, and there was some kind of, I would say almost like an ayahuasca or something like that, some kind of mixture that was given to the person, and they would lay down in this this bed. What we would say now is, oh, that was a sarcophagus, but there's no bodies there, there's no mummies there. What it actually was, from my memory, was that was where they would lay, because I understood it, and I was in middle school, and I understood the way that the pyramids were used as kind of an electronic device and things like that. And I just had all this stuff that I just knew. And it was, I've had people ask, well, how do you know that that's a memory? And it's like, how do you remember your third or your fifth birthday or something? How can you tell me that that's a memory? Because it's just something that felt so real. It's hard to decipher what's reality sometimes. But as I got older and I researched more and more about that, and now that things, with the internet and things, everybody kind of coming into this stuff more easily, there was more information that I was able to kind of corroborate some of what I had experienced with factual information that was out there. And again, looking at things and like going back over, was there anything out of place? Was there anything that wouldn't have fit? I have dreams that are just dreams, and it's, there's usually something odd in that. There's usually something that doesn't quite fit. You can't see faces, or I've tried to look at my phone and I can't use my phone. There's something that would not, match reality, and that's kind of gives it that dream feeling. So I go through these experiences, and I ask myself, what is there anything out of place, or does it all fit what you would think of the time? I have another memory of, very vivid um memory I have of being in a situation where I had lost my wife, and there was an earthquake and things, and the whole scene was something that was very fitting to what I would think of with the time. There was no electricity. There was, very specific kinds of buildings and things. So it was just this evidence that came forward. The details had to match, and then from there it was just more, like looking at my chart and things have come forward. I really recommend to people either having somebody help them with to get started with a regression, or looking however you want to dive into that past life pool, but having somebody kind of help you, because they're helping draw things out that it's like, okay, well, that didn't come from me because I have this kind of setup that it's coming forward from a different place.
Highly descriptive. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Have we all experienced reincarnation? Okay. Does religion play a role in what you believe happens to the soul?
Yeah, it's funny. I've come a long way around in that, but I've actually landed myself in the Orthodox Christian churches where where I fit my beliefs in now, and it's been a new adventure for me because it's something that face face forward you wouldn't see that any kind of church or religion, especially the Christian religion, would say, yeah, the past lives are real. But I'm kind of digging into that now of how there is kind of scriptures and there is actual historical um there's a church father by the name of Origen who was cast out as a heretic long ago, but as you kind of dive into the reasons of why, it gets a little political and it makes you question what it was. But there were certain church fathers long ago that still had these kind of beliefs, and why that got thrown out in the early church is kind of questionable. There's not any really solid evidences. This is why a spiritual Christian belief of why it got thrown out. So it's kind of again, I think, just that uncovering of things. Um, I don't necessarily think that they don't go together. This part of what I've come to do, part of my mission this time around is to kind of bridge a gap through these things. I came from the very woo-woo side of things, and I've considered myself an atheist at some point. Then I considered myself kind of in the Wiccan pagan traditions at some point, and now here I am in a very traditional Christian church, and I'm here to kind of bridge the gap of all that because these things flow together better than we might think when we kind of step back and we look at our own discernment and our own personal experiences, which is really important because there is deception out there. There is darkness out there that can trick us, and that's very real. I've experienced that firsthand myself too. So, really using our muscle of discernment and working that out and finding our own compass of what is true, what is real, and looking at things from different angles and not settling at oh, I had a dream and that was a past life, but really looking at it deeper and finding, my kind of way of going about it is I try to disprove it first. I try to when if I've had an experience, if I've had a dream, whatever it is, I try to disprove that. Is there a way that I can explain this logically? Is there a way that I can find anything that doesn't match? And when at the end of the day, it's like I don't really have any reason to say that this wasn't real or this wasn't true or valid, then, you know, I even then loosely accept it and just continue to take in information.
How does that information come to you? Is it on a psychic level? Is it researching books and historic facts? Google? I don't say that to make fun, but how do you get your facts on this?
It's a little bit of everything. I have a deep connection with a spiritual guidance that I've always had since I was younger. And like I said, that early childhood experience I had gave me kind of a compass, a North Star. So as I research, whether I'm Googling something or reading a book, I center myself and I find because when I come close to something that I feel is true or meant for me in some way, I have that compass, that guidance feeling of okay, this is of a divine thing. So some information does come that way, but I've also experienced it a lot. I always say it's kind of like this 10%, 90% thing. When I start to read an article on Google, or if I start to read a book, if I get 10% of the information on Earth, more starts to come through to me. So it's a bit of a psychic connection. It's a bit of an intuitive experience, but it's also putting all of that together. How to bridge what's earthly and what's spiritual and put that together is kind of where it's at for me.
I can see that. I can see that so much. We got 5 minutes to go before we have to go to break. At the top of the hour, our guest tonight, researcher into reincarnation and near-death experiences, Nikki Williams, and we're having a great convo with this. A lot of people, such as myself, only hear about reincarnation from the Hindu religion.
Mhm.
And if you know anything about the Hindu religion, it's a beautiful, beautiful religion about peace, love, and everything that goes along with it. That being said, reincarnation plays a giant part in what they do. In fact, in India, there have been people caught in crimes and charged, arrested, and jailed for crimes because when the spirit got reincarnated, the child remembered the crime and was able to point out the criminal.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that sounds far-fetched, but the reality is it's happened. And the guy, and there was one case of a murder where the guy was so scared the child picked him up, saying that the child was a reincarnated spirit, that the man actually pled guilty afterwards,
Wow.
after hiding it for years. So, I mean, I always like to look at older religions and studies when it comes to things like this, just like with cryptid and weird animals. I'd like to believe the First Nations who've dealt with it since way before we got here. And this would be with reincarnation, the same thing as what the Hindu religion says. So, I mean, have you talked to any religious scholars like Hindu gurus or anybody like that to learn more about this?
I haven't personally talked to anybody. I have read a lot of the stories that come through from that. I've read a lot of the books that bring all of these experiences together as kind of, proof, quote unquote, proof of reincarnation. So yeah, I'm familiar with some of that, and it's very curious to see what a society that holds reincarnation as such a strong, obvious truth has done with that. But like we even see that it's kind of even present in the background, even in our modern culture. There are stories like that too, where somebody remembers their past life and they're able to give information. Just as we have psychics who can locate information and give it to investigators, and when they've reached dead ends, they take that as a valid, and it actually leads to a truth, and somebody is given the guilt of that crime. It's those things that are there in our society now too. Those stories are there. And connections with people. I have a connection with somebody that I have lived many lives with, and that's all come forward later in my life as I really got into it. But I recognized her from a very early point in my life and was kind of like, I know this person, even though in this life it didn't logically make any sense of why I would have the feelings that I did and why I felt so comfortable and just connected to this person. And it's come forward that I've lived very many lives, and one of them was quite dramatic in the experiences that we had together. And it's just an interesting thing of how that plays out in the relationship that we have now. It's still there. So, it's interesting to see stories like that. And it's not just, oh, I have a past life memory. Cool. Bringing it forward into now is really the the meat of that. That's really where it hits the ground and makes sense and makes changes that are important to us, is when we start to see, okay, it's not just a cool story, it's not just a cool experience, but what can I do with it? And that's really where the astrology of it comes in too.
I love how you go in depth with these topics. It really, really helps our audience learn. Okay, do you believe that when you reincarnate, then that you can be anything you want, whether it's a butterfly or a fish or a monkey or a rhinoceros or even an alien?
I personally have no experience with that kind of thing myself. I know I have heard a story from one person where they have a very, very vivid memory of being an animal that, like, they have a very emotional story behind that. So I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibilities. I just can't speak on my own personal experience that way. But, I think we do have a choice in what we do experience, even just as a human. I think that there's, if you want to think of kind of like a little holding pattern, I even have memories of being in that in between life phase and kind of being in the holding pattern and saying, you know what, I want to come into this life. And that's what I look at in astrology, is there's the aspect of the past and there's an aspect of what our soul is moving towards. So to really see how those things interact with each other.
All right, Nikki Williams, we have her for another hour here on Spaced Out Radio. We're going to get into near-death experiences next with Nikki to try and figure out what really goes on when we try to die. Spaced Out Radio continues with hour 2 next. Excellent. You're doing great here. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's so much fun to be here.
Good. I'm glad. I'm going to put you in the green room, and I'm going to be right back, okay?
Awesome.
Sit tight. And if you want, because you got the chat ability on there, you can chat in there if you want as well, into the chat room. I'll be right back, guys. Okay. I am back. Oh, hey, Clam. What's happening? The Clam is here. Look at that. Who else has jumped in here? Anybody else? Scrolling on up. Knight Rider, what's happening, man? All right. 42 is always the answer. Thank you to Mama Catherine, Louis ×2, T-Bone ×2 for the super chats tonight. Very much appreciate the love, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much. And let's see, who else do we got here? I don't know. Nikki, you enjoying yourself?
Absolutely.
Right on. Good way to spend a Friday night, isn't it?
Oh yeah. What's better
Hanging
than talking the weird stuff?
Exactly. Hanging out with Davey in the Woo Train. It's always a good time. And here we go with hour number 2, everybody. Sit back.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here it comes, hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Talking near-death experiences and reincarnation. And we will get back to the topic with Nikki Williams momentarily. But first, we want to say hello to each and every one of you listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live at KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Palaver. Palaver is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join us on Patreon in the SOR Space Travelers Club. We once again say hello to our guest, Nikki Williams. She is breaking down near-death experiences as well as reincarnation and all woo in between. You know, we love the woo around here, so we're just going to continue to bring it to you. Nikki, welcome back.
Hello, Ben.
All right. Tell us about near-death experiences. People are having them. Mm-hmm. People see all sorts of things, from family to flying over hilltops and mountainsides and beautiful sunny skies. People have also seen the darker side of what happens when you pass away. What is a near-death experience, first and foremost?
I mean, from my perspective, I've not had one myself, so I can't say exactly, but it does come up, you know, in the research and understanding of reincarnation, because, you know, it's, how do these things go together? Obviously, there is a death involved in both of those. You know, I think that there's not just, I don't believe that we just die and then, you know, we're immediately swooped into our next life. I think that there is a place between that where a lot of different things could happen. I think there's opportunities for us that come forward when we think we're going to die, and there's a focus about that, you know, of what a lot of people have, those experiences of reviewing their lives, and is it really what I wanted it to be, kind of things like that, talking to family members and things. You know, it's just, there's kind of an opportunity there to see if we come back, you know, what am I doing? What do I want to do with this life that I do have? So, and I think it comes into the healing of the past lives and things like that too, to, you know, anytime we have those experiences with death, whether it be a memory or an experience face to face with it, you know, it makes you really question whether you're on the right track, and seeing that sense of, our souls have come in with a purpose and a mission. We all have our own, however big or however small, we all have our own specific mission and things that we want to come forward with. And, those experiences with death, it gets you back on track.
I've never had one. Out of all the weird stuff that I have experienced in life, that is the one, how can I put it? That is the one part of the woo that I hope I never experience. Something about it just scares the living daylights out of me. I don't know why. But, is it something to be afraid of? Is it something that we should all be worried about?
I think it depends on your relationship with death in itself, and, how you believe that, what that means to you. I think, um, I didn't have a near death experience and that anything happened and I actually was dying, but I did have an experience where I kind of felt like I was really on that edge, in that void of in between, like I could leave, but I wasn't exactly. And, it's I kind of definitely feel what you're saying there. And it's so scary to think about, and it's so scary to try to put yourself into that perspective. But when I've been in those kind of in between places, it almost takes that fear away, because, you know, I think when we face death, what a lot of us are really afraid of is, did I do enough? Did I do what I came to do? Did I leave my mark? Did I take care of people the way I wanted to? So, having that, we fear those questions of, did I do it? Did I do everything the way I wanted to? But it's because we feel like there's an ending. And then when you're looking at reincarnation and, something beyond, then it's like, well, this isn't really the end. So even though there might be things that are undone here, this is not really the end. There is something beyond that. And having some kind of face-to-face experience with that is really awakening in this life. If you get to come back to this life with that experience and go, you know what? This is not the end of the road for me. There's more to come one way or another. And if I look at it as, I don't necessarily think, from my personal experiences and from the research I've done in all these aspects, I don't necessarily think that, again, reincarnation is something that has to always happen. I do believe we're kind of meant to break that cycle. I think reincarnation is more of, we just get more and more chances. Like, you wake up every day and you do your best, and then you go to sleep at night and you review your day. Did I mess up? Did I do a good job? What happened today? And then the next day that you wake up, it's a new experience. You're still you, and it's just a new experience to try harder. And when you expand that out to the past life experience, we live a life, and really our little, maybe 70, maybe if you're lucky 100-year lifespan is like a half a blink of an eye in the expansion of the universe. Time is, just a construct to us, but even in that, the universe is billions of years old, and our life is like a flash. And it's easy to get trapped in that and let that feel meaningless and unimportant. But then when you expand that out, that's just one day in the life of your soul. Your soul goes on and on and on, and you come in and you live this one life. And at the end of that, you get the opportunity to look back and go, what did I learn? What did I accomplish? What do I want to accomplish? What experiences did I have, that maybe I want to come back and do that a little differently next time. And then you get that opportunity to do that, and your soul's evolution really becomes the bigger picture there. And to me, that's really what it's about, not just the cool memories and experiences, but the evolution of that soul. Because, me personally, I want to get closer to God, get closer to the source, get back to what I know. That experience that I have has always been my motivation. I want to get back to that divine love and that connectedness and that peace. So whatever evolution I have to go through of my soul to get there is the end goal. So, even near death experiences, it's like kind of like a reality check. It's like here you think this is the end. This is like a really big event. Take a look back, and then you get to come back even in this life and say, okay, this is what I want to learn more about. And it comes forward so much in astrology. So like the way that I look at it, there's an axis we call the North Node and the South Node in astrology. And it's a mathematical point based on the movement of the moon, and understanding that isn't really necessary to the point of what it means. But we look to the south node as that's where the past life story kind of comes forward. And there's a lot of detail can come through that. So when I'm doing a reading with somebody, I will tell them a story. Like I did a reading with a woman recently where there was a story that came forward, and I told it to her like kind of the very archetypal experience of it, the information comes forward that you lived a past life where you were somebody in a leadership position, but in kind of a very small earth-based tribal experience, something that was very off, living off the land, very grounded in that kind of experience. So, I don't have the details with astrology to say, oh, this was a Native American tribe or an African tribe or something like that. But I can say that this was a small group of people that was living off of the land, very connected to the earth spiritually and things like that. And that you were in a position of leadership. Those are the kind of things that come forward. And then a story comes forward and evolves. And as I was telling her this story, she was kind of astonished and reflected back that she grew up, on a farm. Her family has a farm. And that was a very central focus point of everything we were talking about in her chart, was how this farm came forward in her life now. And it's, this is how we see it. This is how things come forward. So she had this, traumatic experience. And unfortunately, when we're talking past lives, and obviously not every past life that we have would be traumatic or a big deal. Or like you said, we're not all Cleopatra. We're not all some big famous person. The likelihood that we were just some small little ordinary person that didn't live a very exciting life and just died of old age is more likely than anything significant. But if we've lived more than one life, then the chances are that even if we've lived 90% of those past lives as just ordinary, non-exciting people, and there are things that evolve from that, there's still a small percentage of those that might have been traumatic. And obviously there are famous people, so some of us have had to live lives like that. But it's more likely that we've had more normal experiences, but we have had some traumas. And when I'm looking at an astrology chart, I'm looking, what is the trauma? What's the unresolved emotional conflict that came through it? Because when there's even scientific research now, I do a lot of work with Dr. Bradley Nelson, who he does something called the emotion code. And it's based in this life, but it's how emotion is energy and the science base behind that, the studies that show that, our emotions are energy. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. So even in this current life, when we've had a traumatic experience, if we don't process that emotional energy and release that from our body and transmute that into something else, that can get stuck. And then that starts manifesting as physical symptoms in a lot of cases, or repeated patterns to where now this emotional trauma has a clutch on how we see the world. So, we start to form our lives around that. And you can expand that right back out from not just this life, but to the past too, except, more like if you think of a repressed memory, how people, maybe something terrible happened in childhood and they don't remember, and it's still functioning on their subconscious level as, something that's very much dictating their reality, but they don't consciously remember that. And, it's very similar with the past life experience, that we might not remember it consciously, but there is something in our chemistry, in our DNA, in our bodies, our physical bodies, that's holding this energy. And then we start repeating those patterns. And like this woman that I worked with, it was slightly different. She wasn't part of this tribe. It was her own family farm, but there was very close similarities. And, I don't get information from people before. All I know when I started reading is your date of birth, your name, where you were born, time you were born. That's it. So I don't know your whole life story. So for me, it's like I write down all of these things that I'm seeing, and I offer this story in almost a creative liberty of, this is kind of the general idea. And then I ask people, think of dreams that you've had, think of experiences that you've had. If something sounds familiar, but maybe the details, I'm giving you a little bit different of a detail, like bring that forward. Let's talk about that, because then the picture starts to come together. Because like I said, most people have something that they've maybe discounted, but there's something that they've remembered. Or if you really focus your attention on it too, things really come forward. I know, when I was younger, I had automatic memories, but as I reached this point in my life where reincarnation and astrology became a focus for me, a lot of my memories and experiences came forward when I put my conscious intention into it, to say, I want to understand, I want to know what happened. And then the experiences started to match that, that change in my reality of I want to know. And, looking from those perspectives, then the opposite of that south node that we look to for the past life, there's the energy of the north node, which is always in an exact opposition. So if you see a chart as a 360-degree circle, these points are always 180 degrees exactly opposite from each other. So those two energies, they have a common ground, but they're different. So that's where the medicine comes forward. So, if you say you've had this past life experience where you were, dictated by a relationship, maybe, the story would come forward that you were married into a relationship, kind of given to somebody where it wasn't out of love, and your whole identity came forward for that, about this other person. Well, you've come into this life, and I usually would find that kind of story, well, they're repeating it. Their lives are completely around other people. And then the medicine is independence, and the medicine would be the opposite of that. So that's a very broad, lack of detail way of explaining it. It gets into much more depth when there's an actual chart and an actual story that I'm dealing with. But so we're looking for that opposition, because healing that, we can bust out of that and really change our lives. Like when we bust out of those patterns, and it's just so much focus and clarity comes forward when you see it that way, that you really can make conscious choices to change your life and move towards something much better.
What happens though in a near death experience if you don't see the peace and the love? I know it seems very few times we hear this side of things, but
Mhm.
we do hear the stories of people going to hell or experiencing something completely evil that they just really don't ever want to go back, and life all of a sudden scares them because they think, when I do die, this is my future. I mean, that's petrifying to think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that I have an exact answer for that. Again, it's not something I've experienced. I do know that there is darkness and evil and things like that in the universe. I have experienced it myself, but it makes you curious to wonder too, is when we are in that space in between, is what we're experiencing really a reality, or is it an image, something that's coming forward to show us again, to reflect our own inner depth. So it's, if we're living a life that's super out of alignment, and perhaps we're very, very, not focusing on that, maybe not really intuitively connecting with this kind of information, you might see something like that, which would really scare you. And you know we're free will beings, that's what it boils down to as well. So if you're living a life that's really out of alignment and you have this very scary experience, we have the free will to decide, well, that is the reality, and I'm just going to stay victim to that reality, or we can choose to see that as an opportunity to, I don't want that experience. This is scary. I really want to reevaluate and change directions, because there is no, from my perspective and everything I've seen in astrology and past lives, there's no set destiny. There's a North Star. That's what I always tell people in the astrology. There's a North Star. There's something we're shooting for as a soul, but there's no set destiny. So we can always make conscious choices to change what's happening. So if we've had this, near death experience that's very scary to us, it's a very good opportunity to shift gears, to move away from what's scary. Our souls at the higher levels that we exist know more what we need, and divinity, if you want to talk about as God and angels and things like that, there's a higher conscious that knows more about what we need than we really do, to really get us going on our right path. So some people, I think, maybe need that scare. I think about it as like, and when like I was growing up, it was a popular show where the really bad kids, they would take them and they put them they bring them to the jail, and they kind of let the inmates at the jail kind of scare them a little bit. And some kids just really needed that, and it wasn't for everybody. There's some kids that would go to that, and it wouldn't help at all. But there were some kids that having a really scary experience was jolting and was enough to really correct their course. So I guess that brings in the question of how much of it is actual reality, and how much of it is just a projection that's meant for us to see clearly what we needed to see.
How do you find that clarity though? Is that through meditation, consciousness?
Yeah, I think all of the above. It really depends on you and what works for you. For me, meditation is something that really works, but I know people who just can't really find their way into that either. Whether it be prayer, whether it be meditation, whether it be, just even just researching knowledge and kind of putting things into that clarity in your own logical mind. It's all of our individual paths is going to be different, I think, in that sense. Um, but it is anything that opens us up to finding our way to being more comfortable with the unknown, being more comfortable with the concept that we don't have all the answers and that maybe there's answers out there that don't feel very good but could be true. So however our individual person, can get comfortable with that notion is the first steps in the right direction there.
Nikki Williams is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We have about 4 minutes to go before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Nikki, in with near-death experiences, how do we know how to find our body when we come back?
Yeah, that's a lot of experiences have said that there's a soul cord. There's a cord that tells us, we can't ever lose our bodies. It's the same, I have had astral projecting experiences and things like that, out of body experiences, which in a lot of senses can be very similar. And you can see that. You can see that there's a cord that connects you. Your energy matches your body, and you can't lose your body. And that only breaks when we actually do die.
Okay, how does that happen? How does that happen when that cord breaks? Is that true death then?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not that, a lot of souls have said that, they're aware that they're dead, or they can see their bodies and things like that. So you're still holding that conscious awareness in the soul energy, but there is in actual death and you're not coming back. There's no chance of that. There is a disconnection. That's the only time that cord can break.
I never knew that. I
Yeah.
never knew that. I thought they were two completely opposite pieces of the puzzle.
Out of body and the near death, or
Well, the near death. Okay, where if you have that cord where you're going out of body in a near death experience, and the fact that death doesn't have that cord, that just
yeah.
I don't know. It's giving me like this chills and the goosebumps just thinking about that.
Yeah, you'll have that from the moment your soul connects, permanently enters your body, until the moment you're permanently dead, that you have that connection to your body. It's like a lot of people describe it as a silver cord, a silver light cord that usually comes from somewhere around your sacral area, your belly button kind of area, almost like an umbilical cord, and it's connected, and it cannot be broken until death.
Who breaks it?
I'm not really sure. I'm not sure how that works. I'd be so curious to have somebody who maybe remembers that or knows that explain that.
Oh, that just freaks me out thinking about it. Freaks me out thinking about it because, like I said, my biggest fear in life is death. I don't do death very well,
Yeah.
and I just look at it like this is something we should be understanding and trying to study more.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think when we get back to it too, I can get more into the notion of what the planet Pluto means, because it has so much to do with death and rebirth, and I think it makes it a little less scary when you look at it from that perspective, because when you're talking Pluto, there's always a death that happens, but there's always a rebirth of something, that there's always a gift at the end of that, and to see life and everything from that perspective is a little bit more freeing.
I just like the fact that you still believe Pluto's a planet, like I
Yeah.
do. Okay,
Always.
so thank you for doing that, and I appreciate it. Screw you, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
Pluto is a planet, and we're going to keep it that way. Still 9 here. I don't care what Neil
It's
deGrasse
an important little planet in astrology too. It's a very significant one.
Well, very true. Very true. Well, let's learn more about that when we return, and we'll also take a couple of audience questions, if you don't mind, on Spaced Out Radio. Our guest tonight, Nikki Williams. She studies reincarnation. She studies consciousness. She studies spirituality, astrology, near-death and out-of-body experiences. A knowledgeable young lass who's teaching us some really good information on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Let us continue right after this. Stay tuned. Spaced Out Radio's second half of the show begins when we return. We'll be right back. I love how you're breaking this down. You're breaking it down so simply that anybody can really understand it. That's good for such a deep subject.
Yeah. That's my goal, is trying to, like I said, bridge those gaps, help people understand the things that they don't have to make it so complicated. There's that saying, it's like if you can't explain it simply, you don't really understand it. That's always been like, how can we break down these very complicated things of life and make it so that we can understand them?
One of my gurus in this field, my Eugene Braxton, he's just loving listening to you. Excellent show so far. Excellent. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, shoot, almost closed that. Give me 2 seconds here. There we go. Hello, gorgeous Kim Jellin. How's your brushing and flossing this evening? Gary Rusin, how you doing, man? Nice to see you. Excuse me. POTUS, how are you? Do you only have the one son?
Yes.
Oh, beautiful. Do you have any other children?
Nope, just my son.
What a special little guy.
He is. He's got his own past life memories and things that he's told me about too. Yeah.
Wow.
I try to I don't tell him about what I do, so I don't, because I don't want to give him any kind of ideas that, could sway him, but I try to make an environment where it's okay for him to talk about it. And I mean, he convinced my dad, who's in his 70s and never thought about it ever once, and I've told him some stories that my son has done, and he is like, I have to question reality now, because he's very convincing.
Wow. Bright young fellow too, I bet.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, my son is 10, and he knows that he's seen things, but my son is very quiet and stoic, and he just takes it all. Like, he doesn't get too high or too low on it. It's kind of like, yeah, well, it happens,
Huh. That's interesting. That's how I was when I was a kid too. So I'd be curious, as he gets older, where that takes him.
I'm very curious. Very curious.
This younger generation, they're like a whole different thing.
All right, we got just over a minute to go here. And a big thank you to Mama Catherine, Louie ×2, T-Bone ×2 for the amazing super chats tonight. Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody who's given us a thumbs up, thumbs down, thumb sideways, and hit subscribe and ring that bell because we are here 7 days a week. Don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. We have the kind of swag that you're actually going to want to wear, that you're going to wear out in public, not just to a garage sale or to paint the house or to go grab a burger at McDonald's. No, you can wear our stuff anywhere. That's why it's awesome. So check it on out. And we got 10 seconds left. Here we go, everybody. Sit back. Here we go with the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do us the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Final time tonight, we say hello to our guest, Nikki Williams. We are breaking down everything to do with near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, and reincarnation. Nikki, thank you so much for joining us. And a couple of times tonight, you've brought up the planet Pluto. Now, that's going to, irk the skin off of Neil deGrasse Tyson, one of the people who actually casted a vote against Pluto being a planet. But for astrology and other philosophical purposes and woo purposes, Pluto is important. Explain that.
Yeah, it's when we look at the planets, the farther away they are, the slower they move. So the planet Pluto is the slowest for what astrology does consider planets, and that makes it have an extremely profound effect when it touches something in a chart. So it has everything to do with death and rebirth. So when we're talking planets and things, they're all ruled by one of the zodiacs. So Pluto and Scorpio are two things that go together. And, Scorpio is a very transformative energy, death and rebirth. So when Pluto touches a part in our chart individually, or when it makes a significant shift collectively, which is something that we're going through right now, which is part of the reason Pluto is such an important thing to talk about right now, because literally today it moves into that sign of Aquarius that I was talking about. And it moves so slowly that when it's there for a very long time, and it's a slow process of what's happening, but it's a very destructive energy in the sense that it will come in and it will, I always tell clients when I'm reading their charts, the story that I see forward is like, you have this beautiful piece of property somewhere, out there in the wild, and you have this house that's on there and it's just kind of dilapidated and condemned and you can't live there anymore. And Pluto is an energy, it's like a wrecking ball. It's going to come in and it's going to take that out. And if we're really attached to what that structure was that no longer is serving us, and however that reflects in our lives, or whether it be our own life, if we're very attached to this life and this world and what's in it, then that really feels like a big suffering experience. And where Pluto is making this shift collectively right now, that's so significant because it's been in this sign of our structures and our governments and things like that, where we see that there's just chaos, no matter what side of what's going on you believe, no matter how you think it's happening or why. There's obvious chaos going on in the world around us, where things are kind of falling apart, and it's bringing up questions of, well, what are we going to do next when things aren't the way that they used to be? And so that's the death part of Pluto, and that when it collectively shifts like that, we all feel that. But there's times when that touches a very particular part of our own chart, which are a very big wake-up call moments. This is kind of where people might have a past life memory or a near death experience or something like that, because Pluto is knocking and showing you it's time for these old structures and things that are no longer serving you to be taken down. And it is scary and it's hard when we're attached. But then when we look at this, there's always a gift on the other side. With everything with Pluto and with Scorpio energy, there's always a rebirth. There's always something that comes after that. And if you're looking at this beautiful piece of property you have, but this house you can't live in, well, once Pluto energy has come through and has taken down those old structures, then you have this beautiful piece of property to build your dream house. And that's where the energy of Pluto, the rebirth, comes in. Whether it be collectively, whether it be our current structures and governments and things, or whether it be our own personal lives and what we're attached to, that there's things that no longer serve us. But, like we were talking about before, human nature is a tendency to stick to what's comfortable. It's a survival instinct. When you boil it down, it's our brains want us to survive another day. So we stick with what's comfortable and what's known, even if that known is a dark and scary and hard thing. What's known and comfortable is also usually uncomfortable. But, we know that. We know what to do with that. We know how to respond to that. So we stick to that. And that's why the Pluto energy and the destructive energy and death feels so scary, because it's the opening of the unknown. But when, if you have, say, a Pluto transit coming in to your chart personally, it's a time where you really look at your life as, if I were to die today, or if I knew I was going to die in a year from now, say you got, you just put yourself in that perspective of, I know something, I got some diagnosis, I'm going to die in a year from now. What would you do with your life from now to that year? What would be your priority? What would you focus on? And not just a superficial, I'd go on a trip, I'd go on a cruise or whatever. Maybe that's your answer, but not something that's just the first thing that comes off of your mind, but really think about it, like really putting yourself in that empathetic position of, if I knew I was going to die in 1 year from now, what would I spend the next year of my life doing? That's the kind of focus that death brings to us, whether it be from a Pluto transit or a past life memory or out of body near death experience, whatever it is. That's the kind of focus that death gives. It says, hey, what would you do if you knew your time was going to run out? And then the rebirthing processes will now go do that. Maybe you have 50 more years, but if you live your life with the prioritization of living it like you're going to die, like everything is going to be taken from you in a year from now, then it's a clarity that comes forward of, these things aren't, what's not so important if life was shorter than I think it is, if I didn't have as much time as I think I did. So, we're kind of collectively going through this process of taking things apart. And I think we're all collectively feeling that pressure and that intensity. And then it does affect us personally too. But, we're kind of in the precipice of that, just as it shifts over into the next sign, which is much more about, there's still shadow things of that. There's still an emotional disconnect to that. There's still, some downsides of technology that we might be facing, because Aquarius is a sign of technologies and futuristic kinds of things like that. So there's shadow sides to it, but it's all about new ideas and change. And we're right kind of on that border of Pluto taking down that old house, and now we're shifting into the ability to look forward and say, okay, well, let's build the blueprints for what we want to come. So, it's the focus that comes forward, and it affects all of us one way or another, whether it be collectively or personally.
How much is for, I'm not saying for you, but in regards to the topic at hand, how much of this is for personal gain and understanding?
I mean, I think it's for all what it is. It's all for understanding, and if you're seeking, I'm not really sure exactly what you mean by the question, but
well, just when I look at the topic at hand, there's always a little bit of selfishness that goes into these topics and what we're trying to figure out and what we're trying to learn. Just like what happened to me with my own alien experiences and everything. I'm trying to, the selfish side of me wants to know. This show is part of that selfish side, because it's an outlet for me to learn. So what's selfish for you in learning all of this?
yeah, I guess understanding my own life and my own experiences too. Like, the more that I learn collectively and for everybody, the more I learn about myself. It's a back and forth process. I just I've had this sense of kind of my early life. There's just this pressure of there's so much that I've experienced and learned, and I need an outlet for it. But for me, it has to be something I want to be able to help people do that. So it's selfish in the sense that I crave understanding. I crave learning about my own experiences, and I can do that by hearing other people too, and offering something back is just a good exchange on that.
Love it. Love it. Okay, back to Pluto for a minute. You know, the energy that comes off not only Pluto but the other planets. I don't really understand how that affects astrology.
Yeah, some people really do look at it as the planets themselves are like the energy that comes forward. And I know there's ways to look at it. There's evidence that shows, like, the sun, for example, which is we consider that a planet in astrology, even though that's not a planet in astronomy. But how the cycles of the sun, and when we experience solar flares and things like that, there's studies that show how that science actually does affect us in humanity. I mean, everybody would say if there's a full moon and things start to get a little weird, that's kind of common for people to say that. But the way that I look at astrology, it's more a measurement of the sky as it is the literal exact planets. It's not that Pluto itself is some conscious energy out there, distance from us, that is affecting us personally. But we're measuring the cycles of the earth, the cycles of the universe, based off of the movement of the planets, kind of like a cosmic clock and a cosmic map of showing that. So the way that I'm looking at it, it's just like, well, when Pluto moves through this area of the sky, it has a meaning based off of the cycles and the rhythms that we experience.
Makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. Okay, so astrology is about numbers. What patterns do you normally see, and what do these patterns mean?
Yeah, it breaks down a lot to just the archetypes of humanity. That's all of the zodiacs and all of these things. Um, it's just a different way that they connect. So if you have the 12 basic zodiacs, or as 12 different kind of archetypal experiences, and there's a lot of details that fall underneath that, but the way that they blend and connect is so significant. So, like, if you really do the math of it, one chart, there's so many different combinations. There's 10 basic planets, there's 12 zodiac signs. Then we break that down further into what we call a house, which is just a place, where it's broken down into the chart, and there's 12 of those. And there's so many different combinations that there's, like, I forget the exact number, but it's like 540 septillion different combinations. So a chart is really how those energies interact with each other. It's just as unique as a fingerprint. There's no two charts that are exactly the same. Even if you look at the charts of twins, my dad is a twin, and he was born only a few minutes separate from his brother, but they have different degrees in one part of their chart that moved over just a few minutes, that made a difference in how things played out. So it's not just, the patterns come forward when it's okay, you have this archetype and this archetype, but they blend together, and that creates a much more specific pattern. And that's really what comes forward when you're looking at it as a whole.
Wow. I know I've said wow quite a bit today, but you're just blowing my mind and opening up everything that is considered possibility with this. You know, and you believe that it's all tied to one near death experiences, out of body experiences, astrology, everything
Mhm.
like that. Or am I correct in saying you do believe that it's all connected to one, whether it's one source of God or something else?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. My business name is Cosmosis, and it's kind of a thing that I made up, sort of. I guess it's a word, but I put my own philosophy into it of, the cosmos being not just another word for the universe, but what the meaning behind cosmos, the actually Greek word of that is an order, that there's an order to the universe. So it's the belief that there is some kind of divine consciousness. And like I said, I've fallen into the Orthodox Christian church, and that's something that's very close to my heart. And I do believe and call God that. But I'm very still, obviously, I've taken a very woven path, so I'm very open to the other different possibilities and things that are out there. But whatever you want to call it, there is one consciousness backing to the whole cosmic experience that we have. And it's all connected. That's been the fun of me getting to explore all these different avenues, is that there is a thread that runs through all of these things, and finding that is like, to me, that's the nugget of truth that's really there when you find what's common between all of these different perspectives.
Okay. Okay. And does that also lead to like reading tarot cards and understanding the meanings of what each and every tarot means to the
Yeah.
individual person?
Yeah, yeah, I've done a lot of tarot for myself too. It's not something I've ever worked with other people, but I've done that a lot myself, and it's just another archetypal means of connecting with the universe for understanding. And it's a delicate thing that I've had experiences where that can be, uh, or my own conscious desires and ego got in the way of that. So, it's an interesting communication in that sense. But if you're really looking with the intention to connect, then yeah, it's very similar. There's actually ways to break down the tarot that are connected to astrology and numerology, and are, it's all intertwined into one thing.
I believe that. Around here, we like to call it what we call the phenomena.
Yeah.
That everything is kind of labeled in one piece or another to the phenomena. Let's get to some audience questions here because I know they are building on. Let's go to Deb right off the bat. Hello, love to know about the past. Why do tears show up every time, uh, every reading I get? Turning away because I hate this when it happens.
Yeah, I mean, definitely if there's stuff in the past it's traumatizing and, hard to deal with, and it does bring up emotions, and, sometimes it's hard to deal with, and, we don't want to look back at what's hard, but it's kind of like peeling off if you have a wound, a physical wound that has gotten infected, and to clean it, you really have to dig out what is infected in there, and that's painful, and that brings about those tears and the pain and the crying and things like that. And if we don't dig out that infection, it's going to eventually take us over. There's always that painful process in healing. That pain comes before true healing.
Why is that painful process?
Just we get, we accumulate that pain, and you can't really get past it without going through it. In my experience, you have to go through. You have to really face things.
Okay, I understand with what you're saying now. All right, let's get more audience questions here. Let us go over to Lightwalkers. What part of the astrological natal chart reveals the soul's purpose?
Absolutely. That's one of my favorite things to work with. We look to the North Node for that soul medicine and that purpose, but it's connected to everything in the chart too. So it's not just one particular piece, but we look to the North Node, and then how does that interact with the rest of the chart is really how that story comes forward.
Love it. All right, let's go to Deidre. Has anyone seen planes that do not move on the air? I guess she's someone on Vancouver Island. Have you ever seen that?
I've seen videos, never personally.
Yeah, I've seen videos of that too. And what was weird is there was a bird standing beside it. But I'm not at times good enough to understand whether something is photoshopped or not.
Yeah,
So, you
it's
can't
getting
even
harder to determine these days.
you can't even go find yourself your own Bigfoot without knowing anything that's going on. Right? It's like, come on, where are we? And yes, they do have Bigfoot in Dieter's area too. Let's go over to Lightwalkers. What part of the astrological natal chart reveals soul purpose?
Yeah, so that's, yeah, definitely that, like I said, that North Node aspect, and then, there's also, we looked at, like, the planet Saturn has a lot to do with our life lessons, and that reveals a lot of our purpose too, and as well as the planet Pluto, and all of those things tying together.
Love it. Okay, moving on here. Let's go over to Marty. Nikki, can you comment on early Christian Gnosticism and reincarnation?
Yeah, that's something I'm digging into myself now, so I can only kind of give a loose answer to that. But I'm really looking into the church father origin for that, because like I said, he was in, I forget which one of the Nicene councils he was. I think it was the fifth that he was decided a heretic. But the politics behind that are kind of strange, because he was decided he taught some things that were kind of could definitely be perceived as reincarnation. That's kind of where I'm investigating to find a good basis to come forward in my Christian life with kind of evidence for that. So I haven't gotten through all that information yet, but it's definitely there. And the way he phrases things and explains things, it's like, okay, I think he's really talking about reincarnation and some other kind of more woo-woo topics. And he's a teacher that most of the saints were taught by him, but he's considered a heretic, and the rest of the saints that he taught were not. So there's this undertone to his teachings to so much of the early Christian fathers, and the different things. But he was actually considered a heretic because after he died, like a couple of hundred years after he died, because
Right.
there was a group that was teaching things that were a little bit too out there, and that's how ultimately that happened. And it was kind of like a backdoor thing. So it's something I'm curious about, and I'm still digging into.
All right, let's go to Kaysen. Any comments on the philosophy of non-duality?
The philosophy of non-duality. I'm not quite clear in that what that exactly means, but I mean, I would think it would be, us all coming into unity is what they're asking for there. And I when it comes to unity and non-duality, I think that there's a purpose for both. I think there's, we're moving towards a unity, but in order to really understand what unity is, there has to be some duality to that. If we exist in a void and there's nothing to interact with, then we don't really understand. If you see, there has to be some darkness for us to understand the light, and there has to be some light for us to understand the darkness. So we might shoot towards unity, but duality is part of the thing too. Not where we stay, but part of our lesson.
Okay, this will be our final question of the night. Comes from Channel. Oh, that's for a wrestling match, I think. That's for a wrestling match. So I guess we don't have that question. Let me just take a quick scroll here and see if there's any other questions that we missed. Here's one. Flat Six is wondering, how do you see the role of technology evolving in your field?
Yeah, I'm really looking at this wave of technology that's coming forward of kind of both in the quantum mechanics and quantum physics world, and then also in like the medical technology, that there's ways we're starting to be able to prove, or show evidence of these experiences of brain activities when we're having out of body experiences or past life memories and things like that. And there's, a lot of people who are coming into that field, and it's looking to make the woo woo more tangible, which I think is just such an interesting perspective, because the more weight there is behind all of this stuff, the more good we can do with it moving forward.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's a great answer. 2 minutes to go here before we have to say goodnight to you. And it's been an incredibly fast 2 hours, and I hope you've had a
Yeah,
lot of fun tonight.
definitely.
But do us a favor, tell everybody where they can find your research and more about you.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook and on Instagram at Cosmosis Astrology, and that's starting to take off, and I'm going to be putting it all together in words there. That's the goal of this year for me, is for more to come in writing for it to help people see it.
Well, seeing is believing, right?
Yeah,
You know,
maybe.
all you got to do now is practice a little CE5 and get the UFOs and aliens to come down right in front of people.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we're going to be experiencing a lot more of that in the coming years with the Pluto and Aquarius transit. It's there.
It's totally there. I mean, quickly off topic here. Do you think you've ever been off planet?
I have missing time that a lot of things were I don't have the memories, but after that, things really started to take off for me in the spiritual realm, where I had always had experiences, but I had that, UFO experience and then missing time. And it was kind of like, what happened? Because something changed drastically there. But
Yeah, no kidding. Always seems to be a caveat to everything, right?
yeah,
I remember waking up on the table one day with little children's like fingers running through my head. And I looked up and there they were. So I
very
figured, oh, well,
interesting.
let them do what they need to do and get me home.
Yeah, see, I think that those kinds of things, they scare me a little bit, even though I consciously can understand it. They scare me a little bit. So it's kind of like, I think I don't remember it for a reason, because it's like that might freak me out a bit.
Awesome. I want to say thank you, Nikki, for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight absolute pleasure to have you here, and I hope we can do it again.
Yes, definitely. I appreciate the opportunity. It's been so much fun.
All right, coming up next after Nikki Williams, it's Steve Stockton to kick off the hour with another spooky story from Among the Missing. Follow that up. Courtney Marcassani has an incredible UFO report coming up. Stay tuned. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. All right, we are clear. Great job.
Thank
Give you
you.
a few claps.
Thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate you tuning in. Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate the opportunity. And I'm
Yeah, very knowledgeable. Very knowledgeable you are, and keep up the great work.
Thank you. Thank you very
All
much.
right. We'll say goodnight to you, Nikki. Thank
Good
you. And
night.
go get some sleep at 2:00 in the morning now.
Yep. Good night.
I think we've all been watching your clock behind you, but
Oh
good
yeah.
night. Have a good one.
You
Take
too.
care. All right, Nikki Williams. What a sweetheart she is. She's an absolute sweetheart. We're going to have to bring her back again. She was awesome. I'll be right back. right. So just so you all know, I'm actually going for a sleep test next week. Yes. Trying to figure out my narcolepsy and my sleep apnea. That what's going on. Hey, Blue Cruise, how you doing? And thank you tonight to Louie, T-Bone, 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 and Mama Catherine for the super chats. Very much appreciated, everyone. Here we go.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Palaver. Palaver is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. It is that time of the night where we say hello to Steve Stockton from Among the Missing and another spooky story.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Among the Missing YouTube channel on Spaced Out Radio. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'm about to take you on an unbelievable journey of people just like you. Their stories and encounters will haunt us on Among the Missing. Delbert Wayne Sample, a 53-year-old pharmacist, was a well-known and respected community member in Onalaska, Washington. He was an avid outdoorsman and was always in good shape. He loved spending his weekends in the wilderness, but always remembered to keep in touch with his family and co-workers. Delbert was also known to make last-minute changes to his plans, but he always informed those who needed to know. Therefore, it was highly unusual when he went missing and didn't show up for work. His family and friends knew that something was wrong and began to worry. On the weekend of March 4, 2005, Delbert planned a restful trip to the woods. According to witnesses, he was seen at a gas station around 11 a.m. on March 4 at the intersection of Interstate 5 and Harrison in Centralia, Washington. It is believed that Delbert then continued his journey to Tillamook, Oregon. However, 3 days passed without any contact from Delbert, and when he failed to show up for work, his employer reported him missing. A press release by The Chronicle reported that an employee at the Chehalis Walmart failed to show up for work. The Lewis County Sheriff's Office was notified of the situation. The article also mentions that the employee, Delbert, had never taken an unexcused absence in the 15 years he had worked at Walmart. As a result, the Lewis County Sheriff's Office launched an investigation and initiated a search for Delbert. Delbert's friends were interviewed extensively, and this is where the police would obtain their first clue. Delbert told his friends that he planned to travel to Tillamook, Oregon, over the weekend of March 4, 2005, to visit the Tillamook Cheese Factory. Tillamook is around 158 miles from Onalaska and would have taken almost 3 hours to drive there. With this new lead, investigators focused their efforts on Tillamook and the roads that Delbert would have taken to get there. During the early stages of the investigation, officers received an important tip. According to records, Delbert's red and white 1992 Ford Ranger pickup truck had been inspected by a park ranger in the Olympic National Park close to Lake Quinault. The ranger had taken note of the vehicle as it had been parked there for quite some time. Only after Delmar's disappearance was reported through the National Missing Persons database could the ranger and investigators connect the dots. Over the next few days, the Lewis County Sheriff's Office searched the wilderness in Olympic National Park, and 2 days after Delmar was reported missing on March 7, a new discovery was made. On March 9, the Lewis County Sheriff's Office and the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office found Delmar's abandoned 1992 Ford Ranger in a roadside pullout on South Shore Road near Lake Quinault. Unfortunately, Delmar was nowhere to be found, and the only items in his truck were his sleeping bag and food. The Lewis County Sheriff's Office was joined by the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, as well as search and rescue teams from Jefferson, Kitsap, Grays Harbor, and Clallam counties. After discovering his truck, investigators continued searching in Olympic National Park. However, despite their best efforts, no sign of Delmar has ever been found. Now, some speculate that Delmar may be a victim of the infamous Israel Keys. Reddit user u/sleuthing something commented on a thread, quote, "I knew Del. He went to my church in Chehalis and worked as a pharmacist at our local Walmart. He said he was going to the Tillamook factory in Oregon, yet his truck was found north near Lake Quinault. They found a Diet Mountain Dew bottle beside it. Israel Keys was known to be an avid Diet Mountain Dew drinker, but Del didn't think synthetic drinks were healthy and didn't drink any soda. Keys also lived in Nia Bay at the time, frequently camped near Lake Quinault, and he can't be accounted for in the days leading up to Del going missing." End quote. Since Delmar disappeared in 2005, little progress has been made in his case, but his loved ones remain hopeful. Delmar Wayne Sample is described as a Caucasian male, standing 5 foot 8 inches tall, weighing 180 pounds, with graying brown hair and hazel or blue eyes. Delmar had a beard and mustache at the time of his disappearance. He has a scar on his big toe and a healed fracture on his left arm. Anyone with any information regarding Delmar's disappearance or whereabouts is asked to contact the Lewis County Sheriff's Office at 306-748-9286 and reference case 05C2774.
Thank you, Steve Stockton, for a great report from Among the Missing. If you want more stories just like that, head on over to Steve's channel at youtube.com/Among the Missing. Hit subscribe, ring that bell. That way you'll know when he's got new content up. All right, from the missing to the mysterious, Courtney Marcassani returns with another busy day in the UFO world and the UFO report.
Nobody's gonna know. They're gonna know.
All right, Courtney, it's been a weird and confrontational day in the UFO world today.
You could say that. You could say that again. You could say that 3 times.
I mean, like it was almost like a line brawl in hockey where everybody's fighting with everybody today. I mean, what the heck is going on?
Lines have been drawn. Yeah. Did you see you saw the text that I sent you from Sean Kilpatrick, right?
Are we allowed to use that on air?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So break it on down for us, and then I'll read it to our audience.
So Sean Kilpatrick goes out into the public domain and makes this scathing commentary about Travis Taylor, because Travis Taylor made a comment about science and UAPs, and Sean Kilpatrick just comes out and roasts him essentially. And so they have this back and forth, and it got sent to me, and I read through it, and it was just this scathing diatribe, by Sean Kilpatrick, basically saying that, what Travis Taylor is doing isn't science. It's not science. No part of it is science. And so Travis Taylor comes back and says, hey, you throw out this comment, right, by Carl Sagan, And it's not even pertinent to what we're doing and the science that we're actually conducting. And so there's this back and forth, and like Carl Sagan is being used as a shuttlecock between these two factions, like Arrow, ex-Arrow, and Skinwalker, and it's on, like in hockey, right? Like the gloves are off, and it's just like right cross, left, right. And so you look at these different comments from each side, and they both have pertinent points, which I found to be very relevant in the whole dialogue between the two sides. But they are really just a harbinger, I think, these two, of what's to come between, these different factions in the UFO community. That's how I took it. How did you take it?
Well, what's interesting is we all know Sean Kirkpatrick was the head of Arrow. He stepped down right before Christmas time. And
Yeah.
we also know that Travis Taylor was living a double life. Not only was he working for the Skinwalker Ranch and Brandon Fugel, but secretly, he's one of the top scientists at Space Force.
Yeah.
So
He's a
realistically,
Space Force contractor. Yep, that's true.
So realistically, you got Space Force and you've got the head of Arrow gnawing at each other about the same topic, about who's putting more butter on their bread.
Oh, it's on. It's on in the public. It's like, death match. It's like Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome with these two, in the ring. And everybody's watching, I'm sure, just going, what is happening, in an open forum between these two guys. Travis Taylor actually goes way back, back before Space Force, and he actually got a contract from the government. He was one of the first, I think, to have a contract to do UAP studies. So, I think Travis Taylor, even though he's like, smeared in the community because he worked with Skinwalker, he actually has some street cred because he's done some work in some government contracting. So go back and look at his history. I do think this, first of all, Arrow says, hey, we're going to keep Sean Kilpatrick on a consulting basis to help us out. So maybe this is how. Maybe he's just out there to throw mud on other people and distract Arrow or people from Arrow. What do you think? Because, how else is he going to be used as a contracting basis?
Well, now that Kirkpatrick doesn't have a governmental opinion or position where he has to keep the zipper on his mouth closed, I think we're going to see a lot more of Kirkpatrick firing back, because for the last year, everybody has been firing salvos over his deck, trying to rock his plate. And that's publicly and privately. And privately, people who I spoke to weren't very high on anything Kirkpatrick was doing, thinking that he was basically abusing the program and not wanting to get anything done on purpose. And then he weirdly writes an op-ed story with who was it that he wrote it with? Not Jacques Vallée. Who did he write that story with about potential life?
I don't know, but I don't know. I have to go back and look at that, but I want to read to your audience what was sent to me today. This is a quote from Kilpatrick, and then I'll follow it up with some commentary. During a full-scale, year-long investigation of this story, which has been told and retold by a small group of interconnected believers and others with possibly less than honest intentions, none of whom have firsthand accounts of any of this, Arrow discovered a few things, and none were about aliens. So first of all, I want to point this out. Sean Kilpatrick, as the Arrow director, did receive testimony, firsthand witness accounts, of the program. So we know that's true. You and I, Dave, both know that's true. And so he comes out with this comment that basically says none of it is about aliens, when we know damn well for a fact that one whistleblower's testimony commented on NHI. And we know that David Grush also commented and made fact information available to that group about NHI. We know that. for a fact. I mean, he testified in Congress about biologics and NHI. And so Sean Kirkpatrick is spinning these yarns. And I'm just wondering, for God's sake, what is he trying to prove at this point? Because he's saying, here's what he's saying: a small group of interconnected believers. That's what stood out to me. He's trying to discredit people from the UAP task force, right? Right? I mean, he's trying to take the UAP task force and say these believers, people like Jay Stratton, people like David Grush, people like blah blah blah, future whistleblowers who are going to come out, they shouldn't be believed. Their firsthand witness accounts should not be believed because they're a small interconnected group of believers. I mean, that's disgraceful. It's disgraceful that they put their whole career and lives on the line to be called an small interconnected group of believers. So yeah, Kilpatrick can bite me.
Do you think he talks out of both sides of his mouth?
Yes.
I
you
mean,
saw him at that conference just a month ago. You saw him at that conference just a month ago at that university talking about evidence, about testimony. And so here you see this quote that comes out disrespecting the interconnected believers, which is essentially a shot across the bow to Jay Stratton, I'm thinking, and his whole cadre of group who investigated all this for the UAP task force. And, he's taking a shot at them. So I think he's also like doing a bit of, hey, I'm the one. And so I think it's good that Travis Taylor came out and said, you're full of shit. You're full of shit, Kirkpatrick. We don't believe you. And you're putting your chips on the wrong side. So I actually like that Travis Taylor came out and stepped up and said, I'll challenge you. I thought that was good.
You know what? And it's about time, because look, none of us really know who Sean Kirkpatrick is. What we do know about him is that ever since he took the position as the head of the Arrow program, there's been this arrogance about him to try and almost dissuade people from the UFO story, the UFO world, much like half the Pentagon staff, like Susan Goff, the press secretary, have tried to do.
We know that their whole this has been described by prosaic explanation. Okay, that might describe some of the cases, but not all of the cases. I mean, they have whistleblowers talking to them about firsthand knowledge of the programs, and they're going out in the public and saying something completely different and disregarding their own whistleblowers who have testified. That's a disgrace.
It is very disgraceful. And, there's also another article on Sean Kirkpatrick today regarding, where is it here? Where did I put it? Regarding what, it's an op-ed article that is in the Scientific American magazine, scientificamerican.com. Here's what I learned as the U.S. government's UFO hunter. And he wrote this article, probably leading up to the Travis Taylor comments about Carl Sagan. He started it off that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. In today's world of misinformation, conspiracy-driven decision-making, and sensationalist-dominated governance, our capacity for rational evidence-based critical thinking is eroding, with deleterious consequences for our ability to effectively deal with multiplying challenges over ever-increasing complexity. Talk about using a bunch of words that he could have said in 5 words. I mean, that's just word vomit that he's using right there. Okay, as the director of Arrow, charged by Congress in 2022 to help bring science-based clarity and resolution to the long-standing mystery surrounding credible observations of unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAP in brackets, also known as UFOs, I experienced the erosion up close and personal. And it was one factor in my decision to step down from my position last December. After painstakingly assembling a team of highly talented and motivated personnel and working with them to develop a rational, systemic, and scientific-based strategy to investigate these phenomena, our efforts were ultimately overwhelmed by sensational but unsupported claims that ignored contradictory evidence, yet captured the attention of policymakers and the public, driving legislative battles and dominating the public narrative. So basically what he's saying is people started ratting us out that we weren't paying attention to their stories. Hi, David Grush. And now I'm going to try and make you look erroneous to the public because what you said is not true. That's basically what he's saying.
Look, we know it's BS. Somebody testified to Congress, for God's sake. We know what he's saying is complete BS. We know that 22 million went to Bigelow. We know that they did papers. We know that there was theoretical science about wormholes and time travel, and all kinds of technical papers were done with that 22 million. I mean, we don't even know the papers, okay, because they weren't even allowed to be submitted, right? We only got like, I don't know what it was, 80 or something of the DIRDs, but there's a whole bunch more that haven't even been submitted. So for him to say that it's been sensationalized, okay, yes, some part of that is true, but then there's another part of it that's been very real, and money has been put towards science, and that science has been used to write technical papers that have been submitted to the government. And so people who are pushing for disclosure, okay, people like Russell Tarr, right, who did SRI, have been pushing for disclosure for a very long time. And they've been silenced by the exact people like Sean Kilpatrick, who are saying, you know, this is all just these interconnected, a small group of interconnected believers. We know that's not true. We know there's evidence. And so he's just doing more of the same, like the CIA has done, the agency has done for so many years, silencing people.
Let me read
Let
me read the next part of this because I think you're going to blow up. You're going to pull a Dave here, okay? When you mention NASA to me, the conspiracist's story goes something like this: the U.S. has been hiding and attempting to reverse engineer as many as 12 UFOs, UAP, from as early as the 1960s and perhaps earlier. This great cover-up and conspiracy failed to produce any salient results, and consequently, the effort was abandoned to some private sector defense contractors to continue the work. Sometime later, the story continues, those private sector contractors wanted to bring the whole program back under the U.S. government auspices. Apparently, the CIA stopped this supposed transfer back to the USG. All of this is without substantiating evidence, but alas, belief in a statement is directly proportional to the volume in which it is transmitted and the number of times it is repeated, not the actual facts. During a full-scale year-long investigation of this story, which has been told and retold by a small group of interconnected believers and others with possibly less than honest intentions, none of whom have firsthand accounts of any of this, Arrow discovered a few things, and none were about aliens.
Look, that's not true. We know it's not true. We have a first-hand account from a witness. You and I do, a whistleblower. And that has been testified to in the Senate Intelligence Committee. It has also been testified to Arrow. So we know that that's a lie. And what the second part of that is, what do people have to gain? You know, Kilpatrick's talking about not only the interconnected believers, but those who have, you know, ill intentions. What ill intentions? You know, I mean, besides contractors who have gotten no bid contracts like Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman, who else besides that? Who else are these ill, you know, intended folks? You know, that's just that's more fear mongering, if you ask me, to try to like trump up, hey, if you don't have good intentions and then you get put in this other box. Yeah, well, who are those people? The mob?
Well, let's figure this out when we come back, because Courtney is red hot, ready to take on Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick in the Octagon. UFC 300 is coming. The UFO Watch continues with the UFO Report. Spaced Out Radio returns for the final half hour right after this.
Oh my God, did you ever see Napoleon Dynamite? When they go and they do the seminar with the guy who's like, break the wrist, walk away, break the wrist, walk away.
Oh, yeah.
It's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
I read that today and I was like, what is he trying to do?
Oh, I know. I know. It's embarrassing.
It really is. It really is. When you know about the testimony of what's been testified to, you're just looking at it, just going, wow, okay. So he left Arrow to be what, a PR consultant now, to just smear the whole community and be Mr. Voice of Reason. I hope he's getting paid good money for that.
Well, we're going to see
That's
what he
Blue
does.
Book all over.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Pretty
he's
much.
a hero.
Robertson Panel, Blue Book. You know, they got like a formula. They just keep playing it over and over and over again.
Oh, and I love how I love the skeptics, how they always try and play the evidence card that there is no evidence.
Oh yeah, and we've got to talk about, when we come back, about Green Street posting the Pentagon's response to Jeremy Corbell's leaking. Did you see that? That was a huge bombshell.
I missed
We have
that
to talk about that for sure.
Okay. No more swearing though.
Did I swear?
Twice.
Oh, I didn't think I did. I've been trying to filter myself. I'm sorry, Dave.
When you get excited, you're dropping shits everywhere.
I'm sorry, Dave. I can't do that. I'm sorry, Dave.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm
Come
still
on,
a fan.
Hal. Shut the pod bay doors, Hal. I'm sorry, Dave. I can't do that. I'm sorry, Dave. You're going to be like, Courtney's in her Hal phase. Don't step to her.
Oh, man.
My Hal 2000. Isn't that his make and model, the Hal 2000? I don't know. I'll have to go back and watch 2001 Space Odyssey and see what model he was. Hal 9000.
Who's that in the background?
That's my fact checker.
My fact checker.
That's my fact checker. Oh, Lightwalkers, thank you. I am fired up tonight. Believe me, I've had enough of the Sean Kilpatricks. I won't eat. Dave's got to have a button in his office where he's like, censor.
I'll be cutting them out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
The French version. Courtney, the French version. Okay. I got to come up with this. The French version. I know some French. The French version. I know a French phrase that is, I'm sorry, I do not know that. Je ne sais pas. Je ne sais pas. Right? Je ne sais pas. Je ne sais quoi. I don't know. Do you know?
Je ne sais quoi.
People on here. Don't you have French listeners who are from like French Canadian? Je ne sais pas. Je ne sais quoi.
Both work.
Do you know any French? Do you know any French?
I know a little bit, but not enough to get by.
All right.
Like, I can read French. I just don't know what it's saying. I have to. I'm at the point where I got to go to like Google Translate, and then I can like if you were French and I go to Google Translate, I could speak it to you.
Yeah. Do you have a recorder? Est-ce qu'il y a un magnétophone ici? Do you have a recorder? I know that one when prompted. Where's Lou, Courtney? Jeff Garvey asks, where's Lou? Dave, do you care to field that one, bud?
He's in Wyoming.
Yeah, I want to go down there and be like, do. Je ne sais pas, Lou.
Bonjour, Stephanie Jackson.
You know he knows languages.
Oh, yes.
Courtney's Interstellar comes out when she gets fired up. Yes, I love Interstellar. Oh my God. Have you seen Interstellar, Dave?
No, I haven't.
Come on, Tars. Come on, Tars. He's all at like this critical point.
4 seconds, 3 seconds, 2 seconds,
Here
1
we
second.
go.
Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio's UFO Report and tonight's show. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate having you all with us tonight. I want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. We continue on with the UFO Report. Courtney Marcassani is with us, and she is red hot over Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, the former head of the Arrow program, basically slamming everything in ufology from whistleblowers to those who've studied it before, and to him, nothing's alien. There are no aliens. We don't need no stinking aliens here on Earth. Courtney, welcome back.
It's just basically the Air Force line, right? You just stand pat. There's nothing. There's nothing. Yes, we acknowledge that we were studying UFOs, but it has nothing to do with aliens. That's basically their line.
I want to read this from this op-ed that he wrote on scientificamerican.com.
Okay.
First, no record exists of any president or living DOD or intelligence community leader knowing about this alleged program. That's false right there, because even Donald Trump stated that he had been read in on it. There's a lie.
Yes, he did.
Nor any congressional committee having such knowledge. That one I'll give him. This should speak volumes if this case were following typical procedure, because it is inconceivable that a program of such importance would not ever have been briefed to the 50 to 100 people at the top of the USG over the decades of its existence. Second, I could feel your blood boiling on this one already. I haven't even read this paragraph.
Yeah.
Second, this narrative has been simmering for years and is largely an outgrowth of a former program at the DoD's Defense Intelligence Agency called Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, ATIP, which was heavily influenced by a group of individuals associated with businessman and longtime ufologist Robert Bigelow, founder of Bigelow Aerospace.
Mm-hmm.
In 2009, then Senator Harry Reid asked the Secretary of Defense to set up a SAP, Special Access Program, to protect the alleged UFO material that ATEP proponents believed the U.S. government was hiding. The SecDef declined to do so after a review by the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence at DIA concluded that not only did no such material exist, but taxpayer money was being inappropriately spent on paranormal research at Skinwalker Ranch in Utah. This is well documented in an open sources, particularly in records available on DIA's electronic FOIA reading room. After the negativity response by SecDef, Senator Reid then enlisted the help of then Senator Joseph Lieberman to request that the Department of Homeland Security set up a SAP for the same purpose. The administrative SAP proposal package was informed by the same individuals who had been associated with ATIP. Arrow's archival research has located the administrative proposal for the DHS SAP, complete with the participants, which has been declassified as being reviewed for public release. Your thoughts, Courtney?
Well, first of all, I think it's awesome that he did a call out on Joe Lieberman because Joe Lieberman, people might not know this, but he actually did a bid for president. You know, he tried to get the nomination, but he wasn't popular enough, so he got kicked out. So Joe Lieberman, that's That's quite an old callback that goes back to the early 2000s. So that tells you how long ago it actually was that he got this SAP request in. So you're talking about multiple generations, multiple decades going back, and it's ridiculous that he's saying that Congress isn't read in. We just had a hearing, right? We just had a hearing in July of last year where Congress was basically like read in, not to the full program, not to all the SAPs, but certainly to the bombshell claims of, one, there's a back engineering program, two, there's a crash retrieval program, three, there's biologics, and four, it goes back well beyond Roswell to an Italian case in the 30s, and that we had the tech. And not only that, anybody who's doing their research and looking at this is saying the CIA was established kind of around the same time that crash came back to the US and the OSS. Okay. And Wild Bill Donahue and all that. So you have to look at the way things are lining up. Anyone who's doing their research and is seeing the way things are taking shape, it's like the secret is so big, it kind of all looks like it revolves around UFOs. So, yeah, I mean, it actually does. There's more than enough evidence. There's more than enough testimony. There's the citizen hearing. There's these different senators that have gotten involved. There's the money that went to ATIP to study UFOs, for God's sake. So the fact that he's coming out now and trying to walk everything back and saying there's no serious claims, it's like, dude, your statements don't hold water at all. So I really feel like he's like the poster child for the skeptics. He's the guy out there for the skeptics to go, hey, see, this guy knows. He's talking the real story. It's like, he's just putting this information out for people to go, okay, we have a place to land because it's safe. It's safe, which makes me think, oh my God, if he's the one who's the safe guy, what is really going on behind all these programs? Seriously, if he's the one being put out there for people to go, okay, we don't have anything to worry about. What's behind all the rest of it? It's got to be really deep, really black budget. And I honestly don't think they're going to be able to pull off another Project Blue Book. Not now, not with what's going on. And certainly not with the whistleblowers coming out and what they have to say. Wait till the American public hears about what the next whistleblowers have to say. It'll blow their minds. It is going to blow their minds. I'll say that. It's mind-blowing.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And I got to move off of this topic because, it's just bugging me. But New York Post writer, journalist Stephen Greenstreet got under your fingernails as well.
Yeah.
What happened there?
Last night, I was in my group, my research group with all the, you used to be in there with all the Timothy Top people, they're all posting all the fresh stuff and commentary and analysis on things. And our Australian friend posts a Twitter update about the Pentagon and the Pentagon's response to essentially like Jeremy Corbell's leaking of these tapes and how it's smacking on the illegality of it, and that, they take illegality of leaked content seriously. And so that last night caused a bunch of commentary about why he is calling himself an investigative journalist, and the reason why might be strategic in order to protect him if the Pentagon comes after him, because he's basically saying he's a journalist and protected underneath journalism laws.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting, because in that group, there are very few journalists. Very few.
There's a couple. There's the Australian journalists that we both know. And then there's a couple other journalists who aren't like seriously affiliated with news stations, but they're definitely journalists. They write articles about UAPs and blogs and stuff. But yeah, I guess you're right. There's not that many journalists in that group when I think about it.
No. I mean, I'm glad it comes up. I'm glad it comes up.
Yeah. Well, and then it prompted this whole discussion about, because I basically said, me, I throw the mauve cocktail in there, and I was like, boy, I hope Jeremy Corbell has a good lawyer. And so this one person come back and is like, well, he organized a whole hearing So he must have. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? When Edward Snowden came out, what's his name? Edward Snowden. He came out and he leaked, all this information from the CIA about, PRISM and whatever. He was going to go to jail. And so the point was made that the Pentagon must be giving Jeremy Corbell these leaked files and must be somewhat okay with it, because they wouldn't make claims of illegality and not try him and not come after him. So that to me means that some part of this, they're complicit with it, and they're saying, hey, okay, you can have this information and we're not going to put you in jail. But seriously, the Americans, after Snowden, they would put somebody in jail if they leaked files from the DIA or from the Pentagon or for wherever else. So I kind of feel like he has a good point. They're behind it, or they're complicit with it, or they want it to get out, but only to a certain degree. And then secondly, everybody came out and started to go through the jellyfish and say that it was Mylar, like you said, Mylar balloon. So then I'm thinking to myself, is somebody trying to set Jeremy Corbell up? Right? Make it look like it's a leaked video, really to just discredit him. Take the wind out of his sail. I don't know. Dave, comment. These are things that go through my dark alleys of my head at night. You don't want to be there at 2 a.m. You tell me what you think.
I've received that phone call at 2:30 in the morning.
I didn't want to wake you up last night. I knew you probably needed your sleep.
Oh my gosh. All I've done in the last 2 days is working outside, digging out snow. So, it's the way it is.
It's a reality. It's a reality.
It is a reality of where we live. No, but Jeremy Corbell continues to really be a pariah in this field. Okay, with his idiocentric ways of promoting his videos, the way he speaks, which is very hipster / sports dressing room talk. The way he conducts himself as an I don't care type of individual, that you could go screw yourself and I really don't care. I would say he's the bad boy of ufology, and he rubs people the wrong way. There's only one team in ufology that he plays for, and that's his own. And I'm not, and I'm saying this with respect to Jeremy. I've had conversations with Jeremy before, and him and I have always gotten along. But you could tell there's that chip on his shoulder of confidence. Some may call it arrogance, that he wants to be one of the top players. And for some reason, they've allowed him to be. Whether or not the videos are real or not, that's something different.
Oh, it's totally going to discredit him. Are you kidding me? If that turns out to be a Mylar balloon underneath a drone, and he put that out there as a UAP and got 100% behind it, you don't think that's going to hurt his reputation?
Yeah, but the
I don't know.
The triangle video didn't hurt his reputation. Everybody made fun of it. Okay, the video before that, which sees the orb, and you don't even see it go in the water, but everybody's claiming it went in the water, in the ocean.
Well, why didn't he put? I want to ask you this. This is your opinion. Why didn't he put the jellyfish part where he claimed it went into the water and came back out? Why didn't he put the longer video out there for us to see that if he wanted us to actually believe? Why didn't he only put the short version out? I mean,
I'm gonna put it this way, okay? And as well as I do, behind the scenes, there is a major game of UFO espionage being played and information traded.
Yeah.
Okay. If you don't do this, I'll give you that. If you go and do this for me, I'll reward you with this.
Yes.
And it's a big game that's going on. Okay, it's very, very behind the scenes political. And I would sit there and say that they were him and George Knapp were probably asked to only play a certain section of that, or the video is such BS that he only played what he could pass off. I don't see him doing that. The arrogance and the confidence in Jeremy, I don't think he would play that card at all. Okay. This is a guy who loves his reputation, love him or hate him.
The other part is they said they had this video, the jellyfish video, for 3 years. Why'd they hold on to it for 3 years? That's the other thing I have to ask, and the audience too. If you're Jeremy Corbell and you're George Knapp and you have a secret video of this, craft that's supposed to be a UAP, why do you hold on to it for 3 years? I mean, that is, to me, like, they put that out there now. Oh, we've had this for 3 years. Then what held you back? Why didn't you let your audience know about this and the community and work towards disclosure? That's the other thing I don't understand. Why hold it? Why sit on it? So you can get approval from, whoever leaked it to you, maybe. But still, if he has a lawyer, if Jeremy Corbell does have a lawyer and this guy's or woman is protecting him, then why not release it 3 years ago when you get your hands on it? Because you got something, hot and spicy. That's another thing that doesn't add up.
A lot of things don't add up.
Agreed.
A lot of things, and that's what makes ufology so interesting. There's an article on The Hill that basically says destabilizing UFO technology in a vulnerable world really gets into, I think Merrick von Rennick really did a good job on this.
Yeah, Merrick does a good job.
And it really opens the eyes about how we could be looking at technological advances, which could stabilize or destabilize many different tech firms within the United States almost effective immediately. Did you get a chance to read this article?
No, I didn't read the Hill article, but I know the author. I know the writer.
Well,
legislation. I know his work.
Legislation proposed by Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and a bipartisan group of 5 other senators alleges that surreptitious government, I never get to use the word surreptitious, government legacy programs have retrieved and are attempting to reverse engineer UFOs or of seemingly non-human origin. Although an influential member of the House successfully killed the most remarkable elements of the legislation late last year, Schumer and his Republican counterpart are not backing down. That's good news.
Yeah. Well, there is a statute coming up. I did get a video that the some of the progressives are trying to get a statute going, and maybe this is what this relates to put it back into the NDAA. Though some of the things that were taken out, they're trying to rework them and put them back in with a little bit of a lobby. So when I'm on the Hill, hopefully on the East Coast, I hope to help that out or to find out, what the wording is on the statute. So maybe these two things are related. I'm not sure. They don't sound like they are, but at least they haven't completely dropped the ball on some of the things like eminent domain or intellectual property. You saw that Gary Nolan came out and asked the community today, basically, hey, he said, lawyers, where do you weigh in on this whole issue about the U.S. government having potentially these materials from, the craft? And how does that work? And so I'm interested to see the legal side of this. Like, let's just say an experiencer, even for instance, has some piece of metal, right, that's in them. We've heard about abductees and others who have these pieces of metal in their body. Who owns that? Right? Right? Is that the experiencer because it was in their body, or is it the government because they retrieved it, or does it go to the medical community, or does it go to the intelligence community, or does it go to Lockheed Martin? There's this whole legal question. And if Gary Nolan is posing it, right, to the at-large, legal community through Twitter, that it's a serious thing. that's being questioned, and it's sensitive. And so I think that that's going to be a really huge issue, whether it's this statute that gets passed or other things, like who owns it? Who owns the tech? They're not going to easily write a statute or let a statute pass, which gives up their rights to own it or have intellectual property over it. The U.S. isn't. They think it's theirs.
And you know what? They probably should, because other countries are fighting these things, and they're calling up the U.S. saying, hey, can you come pick it up? There's something weird here.
I know that's the other thing. Documents are being passed around these last couple of days about, these other countries saying, hey, U.S., come get this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, why do they want the U.S. to come get it? Because they must have a well-established history of coming and getting things. Why else would they? So Sean Kirkpatrick can bite it.
Oh, so angry.
He can bite my hockey stick.
Oh, man. That's a good hockey stick you're letting go right there.
It's an important point. I mean, there must have been an established program in history for other countries to call the U.S. and say, hey, come get this stuff, right? There's a pattern.
Oh, yeah. There's a very big pattern, but we're going to have to learn that pattern on a different day, because we only got about, let's see here.
2 minutes.
20 seconds.
All right.
We'll say goodnight. Courtney Marcassani, a great UFO report. Once again, thank you.
Thanks for having me, Dave. It was nice. I'm sorry, Dave. I can't do that.
Oh, goodness. I have to watch Interstellar.
Well, that's actually 2001 Space Odyssey, but yes, you have to watch Interstellar too. Come on, Tars! Come on, Tars!
We got Mr. Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAM, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter, hashtag Spaced Out Radio. I know you're out there somewhere. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Very nice. Very nice. High level stuff.
Extreme. Total extreme.
Did you hear back about your daughter? How was her birthday? Did she tell you she had a great time? Good food and all?
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, she never calls me.
She doesn't. Mine doesn't call me either. It's a sore spot.
Yep. I hear you.
They're about the same age, actually. You said yours is 25, right?
Yes.
Okay, mine is 26. She'll be 27 this year. Surprising, huh? Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Way too fast.
How's everything going for Reno? Have you gotten some signups and whatnot? People RSVPing?
We
How's
have.
that going? Yeah.
We have. There's about, I think, 15 people so far, which is normal around this time.
I was really happy to see Kevin's coming and Kim.
Yes. Kevin Day is coming.
I'm so excited. He's a big hero of mine.
He was pumped up when
awesome.
he saw that. He was pumped up.
It's going to be so dynamic having him and Kim there. It's going to be incredible.
Yes. And, we're hoping to get a few other special guests.
What about Lou? Have you talked to Lou? Can you get Lou?
I'll invite him.
Tell him I'll give him a week in Montana at my house as as a bartering thing if he comes. A week in Montana at a destination vacation just above Yellowstone. Yellowstone Park. I mean, he's down there anyway, so he's by it, but I'll throw that in if he'll come.
Well, I may have a special guest there that will blow the socks off of people.
Ooh, really?
Yep. I can't say who at this point because we haven't got confirmation.
Okay.
But if you guess it,
I get that.
If you guess it, I'll play it out.
Well, I'll have to do my meditation hat. Maybe before I go to bed tonight, I'll try to tune in and see if I can guess who it is. I've been trying to up my game and doing my meditations and my remote viewings. So maybe I can get it if I try hard.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be like, I have an unusual name in a bag that needs a description.
Right?
Yeah. Do the remote viewing protocols on me. And then I'll be like, oh, okay.
Yeah. For those of you in the chat room who are going or have interest at this point, we do have an event set up for it. For some reason, Facebook is not allowing us to invite people to our event, but they're allowing us to post. So if you find that post, just maybe, oh hell, I don't know. Maybe just add your name to it, like you're coming or not.
Ooh, Sherry asks, is it Grush?
No.
Boy, that would be a high marquee level. We should aim for that. We should shoot above our weight class and see if we can get Grush to come on out.
I'll try.
I'm not opposed to trying that. Why not?
We know a person who talks to him daily.
Yes, we do.
So I'll just put it out there. That's all I do.
Yeah, the universe provides, right? The dude abides, the universe provides. Stay on the good path. Well, I'm all about it. If we could make that happen, we would have to make sure that we would have good security because he bounced out of his last agreement because it was supposedly a security concern. So,
yeah.
I'll be a bouncer if you want me to. I'll be like, you don't get to get in. Nobody will mess with us.
Well, my friend,
I love you, friend. I will see you again on Monday night.
Absolutely, you will. And maybe we'll have more on the brawl between Dr. Kirkpatrick and Travis Taylor.
If I get the goods, I will share. I will.
All right. We'll talk this weekend.
Take care, everybody. Bye.
And everybody out there, you have a great weekend. Get ready for Sweet Robbie G and After Hours Saturday and Sunday. And right before Sunday's show, Jessica Jones. She's gone down to 1 day a week. I'm going to get to bed here. I'm pretty tired. But thank you to our super chatters, multiple by T-Bone and Louie, and of course, Mama Catherine. You guys take care. We'll see you on Monday, where my guest is going to be Matt Ford. The Road to Disclosure. We'll talk then. Take care, everybody.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.